Toonami presents the two... This should be two of the greatest, right? Not the two. Okay. You still one? Sorry. Batman, Superman, Flash.
So it's been working the whole time, or just started now?
I just started recording it now since I rebooted it. This says recording. Anyway, welcome, folks. Welcome back to anime to Otaku Underground, show where we talk about stuff that is relevant to us and no one else.
Roughly?
Roughly, yeah. Anyway,
so today we're going to be talking about a bit of a more personal topic, at least for me, in terms of what I've been doing lately. Tedium in games.
You know, this one's kind of more broad, something that's broad to talk about. It's frankly going to get into like sort of philosophy of game design, but I think we can definitely offer some valid opinions on this one, since between Brandon and I, we play a lot of different video games.
We've covered a lot of different genres between the two of us, so we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. This might actually turn out to be one of our more quote-unquote intelligent podcasts.
Yeah, we've been needing some of those.
Yeah, how about that? Anyway, so you want to start off, or should I?
I guess I will.
Alright.
So recently, I'm going to go with the example because this game, I mean, I love this game to death. It's a great game, but it may just kill me. And that's sad because in terms of the tedious things I have to do, I'm almost done, so... And that game is Sengoku Basara 3 Otage. Naturally, it's me, of course.
Yeah,
I got the game a month ago. I love the game. I love it. The story is great, or at least as good as it was in 3, because it's an expansion of it. And additionally, they make the gameplay so much better by giving you extra attacks and adding command prompts and such.
I still cannot wait to play Kojiro in that game. He looks so fun.
You're gonna have a lot of fun, yeah.
Yay!
But they added some things to make it great, and I'll touch on that at a later date. But what I've been doing with that, and one of the new mechanics that I would call a mixed blessing, is doubling the level cap. From level 100 is as standard for most games to level 200. And I know for some people, that depending on what type of game you play, that might not be much. Like if you play general Nipponichi games like Disgaea and whatnot, where the level cap without DLC is roughly about 1,000.
I was gonna guess that. Shit.
A lot of games like Disgaea that Nipponichi produce are a lot like that, where they're built for you to play for the long haul, where you will have a 3, possibly even 4-digit hour count.
The super hardcore gamers that really get their money's worth out of it.
Roughly. So the game, so in Sengoku Basara 3 Otage, at least in Samurai Heroes /3, when you get your max weapon with max level and all the correct items on it, your general highest attack stat is going to be somewhere between 21 and 2400, depending on your character.
Sweet lord.
And that's a lot. You can tear through a lot of enemies with that. With Sengoku Basara 3 Otage, with a new item and new weapon system, where your weapons actually level up with your character, your stats go up even more. From the level cap being 200 instead of 100, they go up from being 21 to 2400 to being anywhere from 28 to 3500. My max character with max weapon and max stats, at the current time at least, is Mitsunari Ishida, who has an attack stat of 3500.
Is Mitsunari still busted?
Yes,
Sweet.
even more so, actually.
Oh my god, I didn't think that could happen. As if R1 wasn't good enough.
R1 is actually the tactic you use to grind.
Yep, basically.
The game is actually convenient in the aspect of grinding, because they give you a new level called the Takeda Dojo, where what you're supposed to do is you're in a small 4x4 area where you're supposed to kill all the enemies that appear you as quickly as you possibly can. Standard fare for hack and slash, but there's a condition. If you can kill 1,000 enemies in less than a few minutes, the fight will continue with a new special condition. The Tiger of Kai will appear, but instead of one of him, there will be 5 of him.
Oh shit.
And if you kill all of them, you get an incredible XP multiplier.
I would not want to face down 5 tiger guys at the same time.
It's pretty difficult, I'm not going to lie. Or it would have been if I hadn't mastered it after the 3rd or 4th time.
Wow.
But trust me, when I go hard in the game, I go hard.
It's just 5 dudes running around on horses, standing on them, no less. That's the best part.
Yeah, but so playing that and doing that, the grinding, it's fun, but just the design of that level, it's easy because with the right items equipped to your levels, you'll get an experience bonus where instead of getting 1 times experience, you'll get roughly 5 times your normal experience.
Wow.
Which means a character starting at level 1 after 1 battle will grow to roughly level 57.
Jesus Christ.
I know, it's actually really good. It's really effective.
It's like putting an experience share on a Pokemon. You fight something that's like level 80, all of a sudden it catapults up like 30 levels.
Yep. It's basically like that anyways, and actually it's exactly having the experience share because Otaku added a new gameplay mechanic that I love called the tag feature. Once you complete all character story modes and unlock a character as support and level their support up to rank 5, you can officially take that character into battle and swap between them. So they're not just some idiot running behind you that doesn't do anything but follow you. You can literally swap between them whenever you want. So what you do is you swap from your character you're trying to level up to Mitsunari, who uses his R1 to basically suck all the characters in a vortex and, well, kill everything as quickly as possible. With the right items equipped at the right pace, it'll take you 6 tries in the Takeda Dojo, roughly, to go from level 1 to level 200. And you think that would take a long time, but it really doesn't. If you have the patience, you can level a character from 1 to max in roughly about an hour.
That's pretty good, actually.
It's pretty good, it's pretty fast. The problem with this for me, and it's not even really a problem, it's actually a good thing, but it's just I've been doing it so much that it's going to start killing me, is that there are 31 characters in the game. I have so far leveled up to max 25, 26 of them.
Huh. So the fatigue is now starting to catch up. You see the goal in sight, but you just can't reach it yet.
Basically, yeah. The problem with that is that I wouldn't mind nearly as much. Ironically, despite with the title of this podcast, I don't mind doing tedious things. It's just that the color of the level itself is what kills me.
Oh yeah.
Because the level, and I think I've showed you this level itself on YouTube. The walls, the color, and everything is this mahogany red brown wood color that just burns my eyes. And the main real thing to making grinding go by even faster is activating hero time, which turns the entire screen bright orange.
Yep.
Mix that with those colors and with Sengoku Basara's graphic style, my eyes are melting.
Oh my god.
And when I'm feeling particularly good about doing it, I'll do 3 characters in one day, which means I will do that level 18 times in one day.
My glasses seem to be burning after watching this for so long.
Basically, yeah. I swear to God, I'm gonna have to have my eyes checked once I finish all this.
Might need a stronger brand after that, man. Holy crap.
Probably.
You can go colorblind just by doing that for an hour. Holy fuck.
But so it's a very long and sometimes, quite frankly, very annoying process. But in the end, is the payoff worth the effort?
Yep, and that's the big question that is really the idea of Tedium in video games. Is the reward worth the effort you drop into it, and can it be done?
In this case, spending hours upon hours to max out characters, and if you're not a trophy hunter, you won't really care, but well, trophies is an added incentive that I guess we could throw into this later, but
yeah, trophies I'll talk about later, but yeah, first this.
But are you really going to enjoy what you get out of it? At the end, are you going to really want to play with all the characters maxed out with all their perfect attack stats, extra costumes, whatever? Are you going to want to really play with that and have fun with it? Or are you going to be so burnt out on it you'll never want to touch the game again?
And a consensus for this game?
The problem with this specific game is that the fan base is small. It's there, but at least in the West, it's horribly small, so it's really hard to say. But for those that have, it's been worth it because the replayability of it and the added boss rate difficulty, which is basically very hard mode, make it fun to play because it's still a hard game in its own right.
Alright, cool. So it basically does give its own weight and value once you actually beat it. I wouldn't say 31 hours of grinding would necessarily be the ideal course of action, but it is still good once you get there.
It's worth it if only you have the patience to withstand it. If you can, if you've made it through and you're still willing to enjoy a really tough battle with some really, really strong characters, like Oda, the Tiger of Kai, Matsunaga, anyone really, on their highest difficulty, that, you're going to get the maximum amount of fun out of it.
Oh, hell yeah.
So that's a case where I'd say it's difficult to find the line, but ultimately, yes, the payoff is worth the effort.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, there are a lot of cases where, no, this isn't true. Doing this yields you ultimately nothing, and doing it is practically worthless. You're just wasting time.
Well, that depends on if the outcome is worth it or not. Since you're getting really overpowered characters and you get yourself some really strong challenge modes for what you're getting, yeah, it is worth it.
That's true, but ultimately it depends on the game. In this game, I'd say it is, but there are a lot of games where taking the time to max your characters or your stats or your items or any of that, really, ultimately it's not worth it because if you know what you're doing, you can pretty much destroy the game in the first few hours. And a prime example of this is, and I want to cover this later, at a later date, is Final Fantasy VIII. Sure, you can grind to level 100, it's also a relatively fast process, but if you know how to break the junction system, you can have the game pretty much broken in about the first 3 or 4 hours, where the game is no challenge at all.
And there's also another thing there's also another part about that I want to talk about. Once you actually reach to level 100, what is there to do? What incentives are there that you can spend so many hours grinding to this point? Well, hours, minutes, depending on the game you're playing. Like, I think a good example of making it worthwhile is Final Fantasy IV for the Game Boy Advance. This is a little out there, but bear with me. Once you get to that point, level 100 is actually very worth the time because you have a brand new dungeon that has a bunch of super monsters. At the end of it, you fight a brand new version of Zero Mist that's packing heat and is ready to kick your ass. It's a little bugged, but you know what I mean. At that point, it really becomes a point of what do I have to use my newfound astronomical power to take out on? What can I use this to absolutely wreck shit on? For various RPGs, most of them do not support this kind of mentality. Like the original Final Fantasy IV didn't really have any good super dungeons. Final Fantasy 1 through 3 never really packed anything. Final Fantasy 6 did have super bosses, but they weren't ridiculously good. I'd say, this is going to sound weird, but Final Fantasy 7 is actually kind of a good example of giving stuff after you reach level 100, and only because of the Emerald and Ruby weapon.
Fighting the weapon bosses, yeah.
Yeah, granted, they are only 2 bosses. I mean, for fuck's sake, 2 bosses, that's not worth it. That's true, but they're also some of the most notorious bosses in video game history. Bear that in mind.
They're hard, but they're worth it in the end if you truly process and have a good understanding of the materia system.
Absolutely, because even at level 100, you're still probably going to die.
That's true. And I bring this back to Final Fantasy VIII, for example, because even with or without grinding, because of how easy it is to work the games, it ultimately your progression on the game, the speed of it depends literally on which summons you have equipped. If you know what you're doing, you can have the game done in under maybe 10-15 hours. Yeah. And if you're truly willing to put in the effort, like I did back in 2008, 2009, whenever it was I first actually played Final Fantasy VIII, I went through the process of leveling up all 6 of my characters to their maximum, and I was rewarded immensely with when I first tackled Omega Weapon in whatchamacallit. Fuck, what was it called?
I don't remember. It was some cave or something like that.
Well, no, Omega Weapon is actually, for the general best way I can put it, is Omega Weapon is hidden in Atlantis.
It basically is, and from what I've seen so far, and I bet you'll probably agree with me with this, Omega Weapon in Final Fantasy VIII completely shits all over the Ruby and Emerald weapons of Final Fantasy VII in difficulty.
Definitely.
Because unlike them, they don't pack instant death attacks.
That's true. And what I like about
not I know.
No wait, damn it! I wasn't thinking of Omega Weapon. I was thinking of Ultimate Weapon. Did I say Ultimate or Omega?
You said Omega. It wasn't Omega? I thought it was Omega Weapon.
No, there's an Omega Weapon and an Ultimate Weapon. Omega Weapon is later. Ultimate Weapon, the first one, which is also a great challenge, is the one that's in Atlantis. Ultimate Weapon also is a much better boss because, at the very least, it has a minimum of 150,000 health. Because the nice and sometimes annoying thing about the PS1 version of Final Fantasy VIII is that in the English version, all monsters, all of them, are preset to be level 100.
Oh my god.
So whether or not they use their attacks properly, or if they just physically attack you, they are level 100.
Oh my god, that's insane.
So Ultimate Weapon at level 100, with its awesome attacks, as well as it having 150,000 health, bar none, is a challenging battle that's more than worth it, because it's a lot of fun, and if you do it right, you unlock the best Guardian Force in the game, Eden.
Dope shit.
Eden is one of the 2 Guardian Forces in the game that can break the 10,000 damage limit.
How far can the damage can I go? Like, isn't it 40,000 or something like that?
Eden stops, I think, somewhere around 17 to 20,000. If we're being technical, the greatest Guardian Force in the game, and possibly the history of the series, not counting Hecatoncheir, if we're cheating. No, is Giant Cactuar, because, well, Giant Cactuar has an ability called Kamikaze. You sacrifice your character completely, which means they cannot be revived. They're permanently out of the battle.
Yeah.
They do 70,000 points of damage.
Oh my god. That's insane.
So that is one that is well worth getting.
Oh, yeah.
It has some pretty fun abilities.
Yeah.
But,
I also love how Omega Weapon in that game actually is holding Cloud's Ultimate Weapon. That's pretty cool.
That's true. Omega Weapon is a different story. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Another thing I forgot to mention: beating the super bosses in Final Fantasy VIII do yield true rewards. If you beat Ultimate Weapon, assuming you haven't maxed out your magic already, you unlock 100 Ultima Stones.
Holy shit!
What that means is that you now have 100. You are now granted 100 free uses of the spell Ultima.
Is that not even counting how you can junction it to your attacks?
Nope.
What happens if you do that?
Well, actually, what you really want to do is you want to junction death to your attack, so that way all random enemies immediately die once you touch them.
Note to self: junction death to physical attacks in Final Fantasy VIII.
What you junction Ultimate to is your defense, because it immediately gives you a 100% defense boost against all status effects.
Ooh, damn! That's just written all over it. That's awesome.
You see. This amazes me how people can say that the system in Final Fantasy VIII is bad, because if you know what you're doing, you can become gods in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
I mean, for regular enemies, yeah, it removes challenge, but it comes right back in the form of the super bosses. So you get 100 Ultima Stones from Ultima Weapon, but from Omega Weapon, on the other hand, this is a boss that is going to absolutely wreck you unless you have the item Holy War.
Unless you abuse your limit breaks. Yeah.
Or not even. Omega Weapon has 1,500,000 health. It also has a lot of attacks that don't kill you, but immediately bring you down to limit break health.
And this is also the game where you can't break 10,000 damage with normal attacks.
Not normally, no. Additionally, it also has a lot of instant death attacks. Not death based on what your HP number is. If it's a multiple of 5, like other ones have,
it's guaranteed
death. Just auto death. Its attacks itself are strong as hell, and it hits like a fucking semi-truck.
Yeah, it does. I wonder if Spoonie fought this guy.
Probably not.
Nope.
But so those are points where you get at the Omega Weapon isn't as worthy of the price, but it's still a great challenge if you're willing to search for it.
Oh yeah.
Omega Weapon unfortunately gives you a little something called the Proof of Omega, which is literally just a stamp that says you beat the hardest boss in the game, possibly the series.
Are you shitting me? Did that with Final Fantasy 12 too when you beat Yasmat?
Sounds about right. But so that I would say not as worth it as Ultimate Weapon. Ultimate Weapon is a worthy challenge and a worthy reward because it gives you a worthy reward in more than just XP.
I would argue that maybe fighting Omega Weapon is more reward in and of itself, because that is the ultimate challenge you're going to get. Because once you beat Omega Weapon, what could you possibly get? You've toppled the ultimate challenge the game has thrown at you.
This is true. And again, taking some of the challenge away from that even is, and I have to complain about this a little, is part of the broken mechanics of Final Fantasy VIII. If you equip the item Holy War, or not equip, use the item Holy War and cast Triple Aura, War is a spell that allows you to automatically use your limit breaks whenever. Use the item Holy War, and you are literally invincible against everything for an entire battle.
Damn.
So if you want to, you can take it down just as a matter of course, but if you want an honest challenge, fight him without it. You will be there for hours, and you will get your shit wrecked, but you will have the time of your life if you're an RPG fan.
That is amazing.
Right. And there are other things along that same line in the Final Fantasy series.
Actually, no, I want to cover this next one. Is there anything in Final Fantasy 9 you really consider worth grinding level 100 outside of Ozma?
Not necessarily grinding, but there are other somewhat tedious things you can do for a decent reward munching in Final Fantasy 9.
Alright, well, there's one thing I really want to cover because I personally love this more than anything else. Final Fantasy X is absolutely worth every single minute you put into it for grinding because, holy shit, that game still sports some of probably the hardest enemies in the entire Final Fantasy franchise. Bar none.
You're gonna love the HD collection.
Absolutely, dude. Did he have the HD collection add the dark summons?
You do indeed get the Dark Aeons from the international version.
Yes.
Which reminds me, I may as well mention this now. They recently announced the Final Fantasy X HD collection is going to be cross-buy.
Oh my god, that's so awesome. Oh man. All right, so I should start covering Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X is kind of regarded as more controversial Final Fantasy game because a lot of people like it, a lot of people hate it. I'm one of the guys who really likes it for everything that's not the story and is not the main character.
This is true.
Absolutely.
Final Fantasy X is a good game in its own right if you just disregard the story and anyone who speaks.
Yeah. Well, besides the Warren, because everything he says is automatically legendary. Alright, so what does...
Which reminds me, don't forget to mention how you break the combat system in 10 also.
Oh, I'm going to cover that. Don't worry about that. Alright, so Final Fantasy X kind of goes back to basics and also does its own thing at the same time. With the way gameplay works in that is it's goes back to turn-based, but it works more on like not based on speed, but on some other value. I don't know exactly what actually it is speed. Anyway, it does that. It goes back to pure turn-based combat, but the way you don't level up in this game.
No active time?
It's time. You have what is called...
No active time, nope. Enemies will randomly attack you.
No active time. They did that in 10-2. It's just turn-based.
Oh, that's good.
And it's pretty damn good. So, instead, in this game, you get something called a sphere grid in place of standard traditional leveling up. The sphere grid basically allows you to upgrade every single one of your stats individually every time you get enough points to advance across the board. For example, you start off at like HP plus 200, then you can go to attack plus 2, defense plus 2, etc, etc, etc. Good stuff. And then you also get abilities along the way. Haste breaks the game automatically, but that's a no-brainer. But once you get past all that, you max out the board, you have all this stuff, but you can't reach maximum stats. How do you do this? Well, the way you do this is you go fight, it was some guy that you can talk to in the plains area. You fight him, you can start removing some of them and some of the stats like attack plus 2 and automatically just put attack plus 4. You do this over and over again until you have an attack stat of 255, which is maximum you get in the game, by the way. You do that, and you can steadily progress all of your stats to the maximum values. This is by no means an easy task, and frankly, it takes for frickin' ever.
I'd assume so. I'd hope so.
However, in the American release of the original game, this isn't necessarily worth it. However, you do still get a pseudo Coliseum where you can fight some seriously overpowered boss fights, which are basically
overpowered in a good way or overpowered in a bad way.
Overpowered in a very good way. It is very challenging, but it's not necessarily bullshit. You can be overpowered as hell, but you'll still get your ass kicked unless you counter prepare in advance. So you can't just muscle your way out. You have to have a plan of attack. Saw cultivates with was basically a reskin of a mega weapon in the game, but it's seriously godly in its stats. So you have to prepare greatly for that. That's kind of the cap you hit once you get all your maximum stats on your characters. However, in the international version, I'm glad they're doing this with the HD release, by the way, you have something called the Dark Aeons, and once you get through the Dark Aeons are basically just dark versions, which are super fucking beefed up versions of the regular Aeon fights. And it all cultivates to a Dark Anima who literally has a one-shot move that can destroy your entire party. Overdrive, thank you very much. You can kind of prepare for it. I know Dark Kefka somehow, somewhere, is going to prepare for a no sphere grid run of that fight whenever he gets around to it. God bless that guy.
Oh, God.
However, you thought that wasn't hard enough. You're still on challenge. After you beat all the Dark Aeons, there is a boss fight named Penance, who is so incredible enough I named my old YouTube channel after him. Holy fucking hell, is this guy ridiculous. He packs 20 million hit points. Once you get him past the first 10 million, he turns into a second part of boss fight, and everything he does has either status effects or can one-shot a character. I repeat, you have to use Riku in this fight because it's ridiculous. So, yeah, Riku, she's got the overdrive that can mix items and basically gave all of your characters like ridiculous as hell stats. So it's basically the key to winning and staying alive. So all this rambling may seem like I'm just praising Final Fantasy X, and yeah, it's kind of true. But my point is, whenever you think you've hit a ceiling for the amount of playability you can get out of Final Fantasy X, depending on the game you're playing, you can keep pushing yourself higher and higher and progress through higher and higher levels of difficulty and enemies. It seems like there's no limit until you cap at Penance. Once you beat him, you've basically mastered the Final Fantasy franchise, unless you go back and fight Final Fantasy, Omega Weapon in Final Fantasy VIII, but again. Final Fantasy X is a game that rewards you explicitly for the amount of time you put into it. There is so much you can do with that game. The replayability, and there is no such thing as tedium in that game. Everything rewards you for everything you do.
So you'd say that's something where the reward is worth the effort.
The reward is far more than the effort you put into it. You can get so much out of it, but yeah, it's worth it. That's on. If you drop like 200 hours onto that game, you're honestly just rewarding yourself because that game gives you so much in return for the time you put in.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected as much from a game that polarizing.
Yeah, it's people more chastise it for the direction the series was going at that point. It was focusing more on just visual flair instead of story. Although I argue the story in that game was kind of good, more so backstory than actual events that are happening. But yeah,
the underlining story is fine, and just the way the characters interact with the story is what people hate.
Yeah, basically for everyone except Auron, because Auron wins everything ever.
Fair enough.
And Jack.
Also,
yeah.
Also, don't forget to mention how Waka breaks the game.
Waka, I can't say for sure because I haven't gotten his celestial weapon yet, but from what I'm told, he is the way you break the game because of his overdrive. And once you have the overdrive that allows you to hit for 10,000, 100,000 points of damage for every hit. Yeah, that's something you can do in that game, by the way. That's one of the first, I think that might be the first Final Fantasy game where you can break 10,000 points of damage with every hit you land regularly.
Nice.
I think so, but don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But seriously, you can inflict so much pain with Waka's overdrive. It is phenomenal.
Oh, don't forget his petrify weapon.
Oh yeah, how you can turn people to stone with volleyball. that never gets old.
The petrification weapon is the thing that basically makes the game over, because all random battles are basically non-existent at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, that reminds me, I forget which game they changed the mechanics in, but up to a certain point in the series, if you kill an enemy by petrification, you don't get any experience for that. Does that hold over in Final Fantasy X, or was that earlier than that where they changed it?
I'm not sure, because I never really relied on petrification in Final Fantasy X. I found myself just blowing away everything with orange overdrives.
Because I know there are some earlier games where if you petrify an enemy, you don't get any experience for it because the game just considers it a cheap death that isn't worth rewarding you for.
Yeah.
Which I actually think is kind of funny in hindsight, but that would be kind of annoying.
Yeah, considering that it seems like a really good way of grinding. But yeah, I could talk about Final Fantasy XII and its replay value, but honestly, even though I find myself loving Final Fantasy XII so much, even again, totally not biased because it's my first Final Fantasy game would be. It honestly does not reward you as much as Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy VIII for the amount of effort you put into it. You can get some very ridiculous weapons, sure, but there's so few really challenging bosses in that game, and once you have reverse and lore spells, you've basically won. So I don't know. Final Fantasy XII doesn't reward you that much for what you put into it. Granted, you can fight Yasmat, who are before Final Fantasy 13. was the highest HP stat boss for the entire series. 50 million hit points. Thank you very much.
That reminds me. What's the villain's name again?
Vayne.
Vayne, yes. Is he a challenge at all, or is he another one you can smoke with no problems?
See, the challenge of Final Fantasy XII is more erratic when you're doing the story mode initially. I've heard some people say that like this grass dragon is really difficult, but for me, I've never really found like the judges or Vayne very challenging, because everything else is just hits so hard for so much damage that compared to them, Vayne and the judges honestly don't present much of a challenge.
Even Gabranth?
Yeah, even Gabranth. Once you're at the end of the game, you probably have some of the best weapons ever. So at that point, he's not really that hard. I mean,
but at the end of the game, don't you fight him like 3 times?
You fight Vayne 3 times. Gabranth actually joins you for finding Vayne at one of those points too, because he got betrayed by him.
No, I know he joins you in the end, but don't you fight Gabranth like at least twice?
You do find him twice. You find him once on top of that lighthouse, and then again right before you fight Vayne. Funny how that works out. But yeah, that game is not that challenging because it gives you so many tools to work with. And quick start broken shit. What's up?
Talk about a turnaround for a character.
Yeah,
but if we're going backwards,
Gabranth is actually a very interesting character. If you play 12, you'll see what I mean. I can lend you 12 if you want.
Sure.
All right.
But going backwards in this series for a few minutes, back to Final Fantasy IX,
okay.
There is some tedium technically, if and only if you care. There's this condition in Final Fantasy IX where if you can beat the whole game in under 12 hours, when you start the game again on New Game Plus, you're granted the Excalibur for Zidane and what was Steiner.
Wow.
And the Excalibur 2.
Oh shit.
Which is the strongest weapon in the entire game. And at that point, if you do that basically on speedrun tactics, you're doing that basically just for the point of being able to beat the game even faster next time. So I'm kind of split on this because if you're an average player or if you're just someone who likes the game in general, you're not going to care very much.
No.
On the other hand, if you're a person who enjoys speed, then you're going to enjoy this because it's a challenge data the first time, and at that point it's a tool to assist you in trying to beat the game as fast as you possibly can.
I have a question about that.
Encouraging speedrunners. No, I have not gotten it myself, despite playing Final Fantasy IX 4 times.
No, I haven't. I was going to ask that. I was actually going to ask, can you unlock the Excalibur 2 weapon on a New Game Plus file when you already have all ridiculous stats, or do you have to do it on a raw New Game?
It's on New Game Plus.
Oh, hell yeah. I was going to say, if you have to do it with base stats, that's ridiculous.
Actually, it's not a problem because it's something that's given to you right off the bat when you start a new game anyways, so
cool.
At that point it doesn't matter because literally it really your default equipped weapon, I think.
That's sick.
That or you pick it up in the shop or something. Either way, it has the highest stats by itself, and it's basically the thing that makes you win any games after the first one.
Huh.
So ultimately, it's a good reward, but ultimately it only depends on if you enjoy blazing through a game or not, and ultimately if you don't care at all about the story.
Yeah.
And 9, I think, is one of the last games to have a truly deep, good, coherent, and consistent story.
Yeah.
Because the story in games forward of that tend to fluctuate and change a lot in terms of quality and in terms of general consistency.
Yeah. We're by no means Final Fantasy experts. We just know a few things about the story. So go to other places if you want full in-depth coverage about that.
Yeah. Now, switching over to a different topic now is something that, because I've been playing a lot of RPGs lately, or at least in the last several months, I have to ask for most people and for you as well, but not as much for you. Is it truly worth all the trouble that some games give you to get the true ending in a game?
Oh, that's a good question.
And
with the avid...
Naturally, being the two of us, the first one I'm going to get into other ones later, but the first one I'm going to go with, just because we know the most about those, is the Hyperdimension Neptunia series.
Yeah.
All 3 of those games have multiple endings. Hyperdimension Neptunia 1, I think, has 2 endings, I think.
It has 3 endings, but each one is so easy to get, you don't have to really worry about it. They're dependent on the goddess. If you have no goddesses, not all of the goddesses in all of them. So it's really easy to get through, so no worries about that one.
Right. Mark II has, I think, like somewhere between 3 and 6 endings, and that's dependent entirely upon how many shares you have for each region, because you're no longer worrying just about shares for Planet 2, you're worrying about the shares of every single nation.
Oh, jeez.
And that's really annoying. Neptunia Victory has 3 endings. A standard ending, a good ending, and a true ending. And I'd say the easiest game to get the true ending is by far Victory, because shares are basically meaningless. The only thing they affect is stats, not the ending in any way.
Cool.
So when you're not worrying about shares, it's really easy. And so at that point, yeah, it's worth getting. Literally, all you have to do is discover certain secret locations and mandatorily watch some optional cutscenes.
Yeah.
And that's basically how you get the true ending in that game.
Neptunia 1 is not that hard to get the true endings for, or all of the endings, because every time you unlock a goddess, depending on who you get, you can, that's a new ally you can use to absolutely tear through some of the dungeons and raise shares for another nations. And as long as Neptune herself does not die, you are set. So every time you unlock a new goddess, the game becomes progressively easier and easier. So by the time you get all of them, you're done. What?
We want to clarify on that's not just a blanket statement for Neptune not dying. You literally cannot let her die once.
Okay, yeah. The trick is the way shares work is it depends on, like, every time you complete a dungeon, shares go up for the area you completed, and like subtracts from another one. Although it affects multiple ones, so we'll get to that when we get to the playthrough. But anyway,
yeah.
Neptune herself, since she is the axis around which this all goes around, every time she dies in combat, shares go down permanently across the board. Not a great amount, mind you. It's like 0.1%, but every time it happens, you permanently lose points. So you can't let her die, because that will slowly mitigate your chances of getting the true ending.
So that seems like something that would be a lot more annoying than it should be if that's the one thing. If that's the one thing that getting the better endings rotates around.
Yeah. However,
because think about the early game. If in the early game near the beginning you don't know this, well,
yeah.
Of course you're not going to know this in the beginning. But say some random bosses like R4 or just a horde battle happens. Or R4. Generally, any of the horde battles in the dungeons happen.
Yes.
It's pretty hard not to die in the early game.
That is absolutely true, but I didn't say you can't let her die, period. She can die a couple of times, just the more she dies, the less likely you are of getting the true ending. And granted,
what share percent do you have to be at?
It's not specific. I think you just have to keep it like around 50% in order to recruit a goddess for one area. So as long as you don't like die every 5 rounds, you should be set. Depending on when you go back to grind later on, and keep in mind you can also go for New Game Plus and do it again, so you can start the new game with all your stats.
That's true.
I love New Game Plus. We should talk about that later, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, the game. There's 2 tricks though. One, Neptune herself is fucking broken, because unlike the other 2 mishaps you get with you, Compa and IF, she gets HDD
all of the abilities.
She gets so many good abilities. She gets a screen nuke at level 20. She has ridiculous as hell's attack stat. So when you break it down, she is most likely the one to die the least, depending on how you play. IF's gonna die a lot. Also, there's the next trick.
Use her at all.
The next trick, you have the option to use DLC characters. Get 5 PB. She is the best healer in the game. Period.
This is true.
You will basically never die, because she has an ability that heals your entire party manually. She
can heal at will. She heals all 3 at once, and she heals at will.
I know, it's so good.
Once you have her, you are no longer the item system's bitch anymore.
The final trick to the game, when trying to get the final ending, is that you can, if you restart a fight, the death that Neptune suffered does not count. So if you failed, you can restart the fight, and you'll basically be in the clear, as long as Neptune herself does not die and you win the battle.
That's good.
Oh yeah, so really, the cards are not as stacked against you as you'd think.
Something to mitigate the damage at all is at least decent enough.
Absolutely, I think having a good buffer for error is absolutely good. Not too much so the concept is completely null and void, but just enough so you have to be on your toes.
Right. And as for Mark II, getting the true ending in that game is not necessarily more difficult, but just a lot more annoying. Because in that game, shares are harder to get back, and again, losing or just natural events in the story will set you back a good several shares for all 3 nations or all 4 nations that you have to worry about. The problem is every dungeon of every nation has their own set of shares, which means if you want to get the true ending, you have to grind the hell out of every single dungeon in the game to up that specific location's shares to max or 90% or however is the highest you can go.
Oh, Christ.
Without affecting the other nation's hold on your shares. You will never want to touch the stock market again after you play this game.
Oh, Jesus. I thought it was a little iffy sometimes in the first game, but oh, fuck.
And so that's a pain in the ass to deal with because, mind you, you have to deal with share grinding a lot. Not even if you're not going for the true ending. There are certain points in the game where the story will grind to a complete halt unless you have the proper shares in certain locations.
No.
Like there's a scene maybe 1/2 into the game where you need to take a train to get from Louis to from Louis to Leanbox because, well, she's in another country or some shit that's actually not connected to the continent.
Oops.
So that's America for you, always making things difficult.
Hey.
But you have to take a sea train to get there, and because the enemy has already gone ahead of you, they've destroyed the train and made it basically impossible for you to move on. The trick to that is you find them the tools to fix the train, which basically means item grinding there to get the right items to give them, and you also have to worry about shares. And if you're not in the right percentage, you'll never know if you really are because at that point there's already at least 8 dungeons you have to grind for. Ew. That it's a pain in the ass just to progress the story naturally, which is why 7-8 months later I have still not gotten past the halfway point of the game.
Well, you also haven't been touching much in general, so
they're not even like even after taking some time to randomly play it sporadically after beating Victory, I still just have not found the interest to do it. Not because the story is bad, and again that's a topic for another time, but just the amount of grinding you have to do for it is one of the reasons why people regard it as the worst in the series.
Like, after hearing you talk about this, yeah, I can absolutely see why that'd be the case.
Victory is the one example where is one of those examples where the sequel, instead of being much harder, is actually significantly easier in the story as a whole, but especially when it comes to the new ending. All you do is this: you send out your scouts to find hidden locations on the map. You go to them, and they'll stay stagnant for a long time. If you view enough optional cutscenes, other events will be triggered later, which will set in motion a plot to either ignore a character's existence for quote-unquote betraying you, or try to get them to come back to their senses for betraying you because it wasn't of their control. They were being hypnotized. You need the correct items and the correct locations open. Once you've beaten that subplot, a bunch of various locations, those locations will open up again, and all you have to do is go there and view these cutscenes. Once these cutscenes happen, the story will progress as normal for a little while until you hit the ability to return back to the main dimension, because Victory takes place on 2 different dimensions.
I'm going to ask about that later.
So when you go back to the main dimension, that's when you fight the final battle with the final battle in the true ending with the true bosses.
It's not our fault, is it?
It's not.
Okay,
thankfully, it's not.
Thank
She's
Christ.
in the game, but she's not a final boss.
Yay!
But so the point I'm getting at is that the game itself and getting whatever endings you wanted became significantly easier, to where playing the game itself, if you've already beaten it once or twice, takes maybe 4 or 5 hours, and if you're ending grinding, it'll take you maybe 15 hours to get all 3 endings.
Let's not forget how easy it is to completely cap your stats because of the individual attacks they give you to raise them.
That's true.
So once you include that buffer and how the combat engine is so vastly improved from 2 and 1, you basically are guaranteed to get the true ending if you go out of your way enough to do it on your first playthrough.
That's true. At the other point, you know what the funny thing is? The standard ending, the one that you think would be the easiest to get, because literally all you do is go through the story, no optional cutscenes, none of that. You think would be the fastest? I have not done it.
Why?
I've gone through the game 6 times. I've just, out of habit, I've just gone to view all the cutscenes because the cutscenes in the game are pretty funny that I wouldn't want to ignore it.
Oh, well, that's true.
So that's going to be a fun game when we actually tackle it because...
Yeah. There's one more point I want to mention with... are we done with the true ending bit, or was there anything else you want to mention about that?
I wanted to bring up 2 more specific games, but I'll be brief about them.
Alright.
Now, these are very minor in terms of things you have to do to go out of your way to get them, but the true endings in Persona 3 and 4.
Oh, I was guessing those.
I would talk about 1 and 2, but I haven't played 2 yet, or 1 yet, and I actually have Persona 2 Eternal Punishment on my PS3. I just haven't taken the time to go play it yet, at all.
Well, I can't blame it. I have 12 games sitting here I haven't touched yet, so don't worry about it.
Also, that's an early PS1 game, so
yeah,
it will not control as well.
Nope.
But anyways, in Persona 3, the ending, and this leads into another topic actually, but the ending, the way to get the true ending for that is one of those ones where the story is based almost entirely around choices. Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do this or do you do that? And basically, you can either get... There's only 2 endings. The standard ending and the bad ending, which is where you just say outright, I'm going to kill Ryoji because if I don't, the universe is going to explode, so at least if I kill him at least, it'll be quick and painless. If I don't, it'll be a horrible bloody mess. Yeah. But it ultimately doesn't matter because the sensible option is because this is a character who is feeling incredible remorse and regret because he is causing the apocalypse, and he's saying, I understand your pain, I understand your rage. If it makes you feel any better, you can kill me right now and it'll be over with.
How courteous.
He's one of those ones that feels an immense regret for what he does because he sees the problems of his actions.
Oh my god, this guy's actually a pretty good character.
He is. He's also one of the funnier characters in the story.
How about that shit?
But so at that point, your natural option is going to be, all right, I'll do it if you really want it. But then you come upon Atlas logic, and Atlas is Atlas, so you have to do what's right or what's true or whatever's justice, no matter what, despite how stupid and actually probably bad that would be. Needs
of many outweigh needs of few.
Something like that. Yeah. Although it's kind of stupid. The logic for beating the final boss of Persona 3 is basically the same logic as beating the final boss of Final Fantasy X. We know this thing is a giant monster that can destroy the universe. We know we've already lost to it twice, but if we try really, really hard and only send out 4 people instead of a full party of 9 characters, we'll be able to beat it for sure.
Yeah.
And they do, and that works. And it's one of those ones where, even though there's only 2 endings, the bad ending and the standard ending, honestly, it's an ending that isn't satisfying anyways, given what happens afterwards. So, despite it being bad in the game ending 2/3 of the way through, if you choose the kill option, maybe it's just me, but I would actually prefer the kill option. Not because I'm a sadist, but because it would be doing justice.
And it would be the logical thing to do, yeah. You know, like I said earlier, needs and many outweigh needs of a few.
And now we move on to Persona 4, where getting the true endings isn't really annoying. Mind you, I'm going off of Persona 4 Golden, by the way. It's not really that it's annoying, it's just that you have to talk to a bunch of people and, again, choose not to kill someone. And it's more that you have a lot more crap to do this time because you have to talk to literally everyone and go through different text options and choices and boxes and stuff so many times that it is downright frustrating. And at some points, you will have a series of 5 questions in a row where you will just gonna want to just slam your Vita into, ironically enough, into your TV.
Thank you for not doing that.
No, I know better than to do something that stupid, but you will want to with how annoying some of these texts are. And again, it's one of those things where, yes, this person, in a similar vein to Ryoji, this person has committed a crime, whether they intended to or not, and they deserve to be punished for it.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is talking about the guy who, what's his name, who kidnapped all the people in the back of his truck, threw them in the TV to die.
Yeah.
So this is a point where Yosuke is like, everyone is suffering, everyone's been hurt because of you. Well, I'm going to murder you. I'm going to physically throw you into the TV that you've thrown everyone else into, so the shadows kill you for what you've done to everyone else.
Yep.
And again, this is something where that would make sense, but again, that causes the bad ending, so you can't do that. So you're forced to...
It's a logical ending, though, because the real guy's still out there.
Yes, and this is true, and again, another case of the apocalypse is going to happen if you do or don't do it, but it's one of those things where maybe it's just instant gratification, but you would just feel so much better if you had in fact murdered him, even if he wasn't the true villain anyways.
Yeah.
But that's one of those ones where you have to talk to everyone and deal with a bunch of text boxes and choices, so in that vein, getting true endings is a lot more like a PC game than like an actual console RPG.
Yeah, so can I talk about 2 games in particular that I've encountered that involve choices in order to get the final ending?
Go for it.
All right, I kind of want to cover them both at the same time because they both do things right and do things wrong at the same time. Infamous and Mass Effect 2. Yes, I've actually played Mass Effect 2. It's actually a pretty good game.
No, I'm not saying that those are bad. I just think it's pretty funny that those are the next places you went.
Well, naturally, because we're talking about true endings here and the choices you choose. Infamous is, of course, it's the one that got me into the idea that you can actually have choices going into it that will alter the outcome. I love this.
Infamous, if we're being technical, isn't Infamous the easier of the two?
It is. It absolutely is, because you only have one or two different endings. You have the main storyline ending, but then you have what happens afterwards with either Cole is a good guy and the city's prospering and everyone's happy and the disease is cured and all the people running around the streets naked, butt-fucking each other, and everything's alright with the world. Or the bad ending where everything's gone to shit, everyone's running around butt-fucking each other anyway, and everything's gone to hell, and Cole is responsible for it.
And Sony decided to put 2 versions of Cole in PlayStation All-Stars.
Well, yeah. Anyway. But those are...
I would say that's a result of getting the bad ending. There are 2 Coles, there are 2 Coles.
Yep. Dimensions be damned. But, that reason that's so good is because you only have 2 different endings to worry about. You can let your actions either lead yourself to being good and just and actually helping others and doing what's right. Or you can be a total dickweed and kill everything that in sight without remorse for your actions, and you can get the bad ending. The choice is in black and white.
Make the game fun.
Yeah, exactly. the choice is there for you in black and white. You can choose which one to be. You're not tricked into which one happens or not.
I like that, actually, because I hate that a lot of games like Persona and like a lot of other JRPGs, they're never direct with you, and they do that
they mislead
intentionally
you
just to annoy you.
They mislead you too. That's the worst part.
This would be justice, but even if it's justice for you, it's not justice for everyone else.
Yeah.
So even though this makes sense to do, you can't do it.
Exactly.
And I kind of hate that thing in games, because if there's a point where someone deserves to outright die, do it. I hate endings in a game or a movie or an anime where the villain is like, "You've beaten me, kill me." No, you need to suffer. You need to suffer truly. You need to worry about your actions in jail. And I think that's fucking stupid. I think if someone has truly committed a grand scale crime, they need to be executed depending on the scale of their crime.
Yeah.
In a case of Persona 3 or 4, or a lot of JRPGs, if they're about to start the apocalypse or murder people, you need to put them to death, and you need to do it now.
Yeah, I think it more depends on the character, though. If there's someone who's a complete asshole and just screwing with you the entire time, I wouldn't kill them because they need to, be tortured for a little bit, but anyway. I'm not an asshole.
Scale. It depends. Nice. Thanks a lot. Ultimately, it depends on the scale of the crime.
It does, yeah.
If it's someone just fucking around with people, no, not really. If it's like a villain from No More Heroes, maybe. But if it's someone like a Persona character who's causing the apocalypse, yeah, I think I'm just gonna stab you in the forehead now.
Yeah. But it didn't introduce that emotional turmoil. Do you want to kill this guy because he sees the error of his ways? He's turning a new leaf. Do you really want him to kill him? Because the emotional struggle is there. Well, obviously you're going to kill him, but obviously Atlas, they're going to throw a little dangly thing in your face like, no, you got to kill this guy because there's totally not a secret ending over that way.
In Persona 3, yes. In Persona 4, no. It's different because... Now, the difference in Persona 4 Golden specifically is that if you let Adachi escape, you're granted a new ending where you will become officially Adachi's accomplice.
What?
So you're not. This is why you need to play Persona 4 Golden. There's like 3 new endings.
Oh Christ! Yeah,
so
I probably get on this.
So you're not the nice thing about Persona 4 Golden, at least, or Persona 4, is that you're not automatically thrown into a bad ending. You're just given different endings depending on what happened. And in Golden, at least, you actually do form a friendship, a very strong one, with Adachi. To the point where if you choose the right things, even though he's doing all that he is, he's become so close to you that you can't turn him in. He will escape, and it will be all your fault.
Oh man, that's amazing.
It really is. It's one of those games that's really frustrating when it comes to endings, but if you're actually
pretty well executed too.
But if you're interested in seeing them, they are more than worth the payoff. Again, it's one of those things where in all of these cases, really, you have to be interested enough to see it.
Yeah. All right. So going back to what I was talking about, there's Infamous, which is black and white. It's 60 endings right in front of you. Here are your options. Mass Effect 2, I feel like it's a little more frustrating, but it also makes more sense because there's multiple things you can do. Some will steer the ending towards more distinct thing, like characters will die, characters will be alive, other stuff like that will happen. I don't know if that like transfers to Mass Effect 3 or not when you boot a save file, but anyway.
It does not. It does not.
Because logic, fuck you. You have these things that can happen, but I feel like they're ultimately pointless because that means once you beat the game, you're shot characters, and you can't predict who you want to keep characters alive. But unless you have a guide open, there's no way you'll be able to predict who's going to be alive and who you can protect, or the ones you're going to have to let go of. It really becomes
That's true.
It's really painful because once you do that, you're forever shot at character unless you go and create a brand new game from scratch.
That's true, and it makes things difficult when some of these characters in that game are really, really likable.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really painful when you lose one of your favorite characters, which actually makes it feel a lot like Fire Emblem in a way. If you let a character die once, no matter how much you love or hate them, they're dead for the rest of the game.
Now, naturally, that would give some players these that, I should probably just be a lot more cautious and let all my things. Actually, I just realized something. Did you know? I think Fire Emblem was the thing that inspired a Nuzlocke run in Pokemon.
It was actually.
How about that? Anyway, but for most of us, like probably you or me, it's incentive to go buy a strategy guide.
Generally.
Yeah.
But it makes the point though that it shows you that you really have to be a lot more careful about what you're doing. Even if you're progressing well in the game, you get blindsided by a boss that kills 3 of your characters out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's good in the sense that this damage is real, but at the same time, it makes actually completing the game that much harder when you lose your best characters.
That also comes into an argument of story versus gameplay. Do you sacrifice elements of gameplay that would make it fun otherwise for the story purposes, or do you subtract from the story to make the gameplay more concrete and solid and more riveting for you to play? There's no right answer for that ultimately, but I would personally say, well, it's a video game, keep it a video game, it's not a storybook. But it's really up to...
I know the genesis of that argument.
But
I know that the genesis of that argument is Final Fantasy IV.
Oh, yeah, true.
Cecil being a Black Knight, and then the story just turning him into a paladin halfway through that resets him to level 1.
Oh, fuck.
That's the point where this really all started, where the story truly affected the gameplay. You've got a character that's got some pretty good skills and some pretty decent level, and you think, okay, this is a character I can get down with. This is a character I can get some great use out of. I know this character's strengths, weaknesses, and their abilities.
Yeah.
Nope. 2, maybe 3 hours into the game, your character is turned into something completely different.
Yep.
Which makes him ultimately a lot weaker in the end because his stats go down, and while he can learn some white magic, his white magic is useless.
So you really gotta worry about grinding him all the way back up to the level you're currently at. It also applies to victory, doesn't it? With how you get the goddesses, whether it starts at level 1.
Not really, no.
No? Oh, I thought you said something. Was that Mark 2?
No, that's oh no, that's just when you have a DLC character.
Oh, well, actually, that applies to first Neptunian as well. So yeah.
That applies to the entire series. You buy a DLC character, they're automatically level 1, meaning you have to manually grind them.
Yeah, if you guys are watching this, expect me to get the DLC characters for the game as soon as I start out. So don't worry about that. It's gonna be good.
Yep. But so basically, at that point, it's that Final Fantasy IV and that argument brings a level of tedium in itself because you spent the time to level this character up, gain their abilities, make use of them.
Then they're gone.
And then they're just immediately taken away from you, and you have to grind that character back up right again immediately anyways with a completely different set of abilities that you're not used to and that ultimately aren't useful. Cecil's one saving grace as a paladin is his attack stat.
Yeah.
Because his abilities outside of that are useless. You're never going to use his white magic if you have Rosa in your party.
That kind of sucks too, because I was playing the DS version for a little bit. I actually got some good use out of his solar ability, where when you activate it, you lose a little bit of health for the turn, but your attack stat goes to the fucking roof.
Exactly. So that's another argument that ultimately it depends on whether or not you want the ultimate experience of gameplay or ultimate experience of story. It is impossible to marry these two things in a way that works perfectly. And it's been a rocky road ever since its inception back with Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah. I argue it probably came from something before that, but I don't know of any examples of that, so I'm going to say something about that. But yeah, my argument is that as far as the true endings go, you have YouTube for that, so depending on the person you are, if you want to experience the true ending, you can just go watch it on YouTube. But if you're someone like me who is prideful about the game and it's actually fun and worthwhile and challenging, and you want the rewards of actually seeing the shit through, go through it, get the ending, boom, done. It's not so much so you can get it, and it's more the satisfaction of knowing you conquered what this game is throwing at you. It's a pride thing, if any of you gamers out there know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a matter of saying, yes, I've done this, I've conquered the mountain.
Yeah.
And
so there's, you want to steer the argument somewhere, or I kind of want to talk about something that we brought up earlier.
What's
Trophies
that?
and achievements.
Oh, in that case, I do want to bring up one last thing first, because this is the epitome of tedium, depending on your personality.
Oh.
And this is also the epitome of Atlas being Atlas.
Ooh.
I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Is it super bosses, or is it something else?
Actually, annoyingly enough, not too many Atlas games have super bosses, but this is more on the ending thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually surprised you don't know where I'm going. That is, and again, this is completely per individual dependent.
Probably gonna feel dumb for this.
There is no right or wrong answer for this, and that is Catherine.
Huh, I didn't know where that was going then.
Catherine is a game that has 6 different endings. 6.
Oh, yeah,
Count them,
the multiple endings thing where you can't get more than one on one playthrough. Fuck. I'm surprised we skimmed over that entirely, actually. We should have brought it up earlier.
I kind of did in the sense of Mark II, because there are 4 good endings where you're basically allies with any one particular of the other 3 nations. She's like, yeah, I want to be her sister now.
Oh, jeez.
Some of my favorites include, Netgear studying karate with Blonde.
No, that's actually pretty cool.
But the multiple endings thing, and the thing with Catherine...
Hey, can you cover this for a minute? I'm going to take a swing by the bathroom.
Alright. And the thing that makes Catherine a tedious game is that the story changes so much from beginning to end with the progression of the nightmares and your choices in the story. And again, this is a really hard topic to discuss, because depending on who you are, that's entirely what this game is about, who the individual player is. And in that sense, it's kind of like an MMO, because you're making all of the decisions yourself on how you want everything to progress. And if you don't know any better, you're going to get completely different from what you originally intended it to be. You might think you want Catherine, the one who wants to be your wife, and through no fault of your own, just because of who you are or because of what you unknowingly did, you may well end up with the cheater's end just because you don't know what you're doing, or because the game itself is not telling you what the hell you're supposed to do. And that becomes a problem when you're trying for something specific and you end up in completely the wrong place, just because either the game sets you back by itself, or you just don't know what's right or wrong. And again, it depends which side of the scale you're going, but...
I'm back.
Oh, good. So that's a problem with the scale, because the story itself will force you in some directions. Some mandatory scenes will put you in some places that you don't want to be. The individual choices yourself take the scale up and down very, very minorly when it comes to the actual scenes, when you're talking to characters, when you're talking to your friends in the bar, or when you're talking to Catherine. When a mandatory scene comes up, the bar will swing heavily in either direction, and that can completely set you off because it'll set you back from the direction you're truly trying to go.
Huh.
When you're in the booth doing the questions that are actually ranked and scored and sent off to the internet as basically a public study, those are the ones that matter. And again, those are not terribly direct either.
Wow.
And what's more is, you think you could be doing everything right, and you can miss just one thing, and you'll end up again on a completely different ending just because you answered one question wrong out of however many 30 or 40 there actually are.
That reminds me of the ending to Final Fantasy X too, where if you don't have 100% completion and you miss even one minute detail of the story, you're fucked.
Nice. The other problem I have with Catherine is that with its 6 endings, you have neutral, true neutral, cheaters, true cheaters.
It sounds like Shout at Hedgehog.
Kind of, actually. Damn it. Fuck, what's it called? Faithful or true faithful or something. Whatever it means to be faithful to your girlfriend. Whatever the word for that would be.
I think that's basically the best word for it.
The problem with that, though, is that there is no true ending because there are 3 true endings.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
So
you're getting to Soul Calibur territory where you don't know what the results are of the game until afterwards.
And again, ultimately, it depends on who you are, but there's no way to be ultimately satisfied no matter what you do. Because I've seen the true neutral ending, and my god, is it boring. It's supposed to be the best one, but it is the most boring of the bunch.
Is it just like, fuck both of you girls, I'm going off on an adventure somewhere?
I want to do a playthrough of this later to execute my point way down the road, but in the true neutral ending, Vincent goes to space.
What?
Vincent goes to space.
Is there any context for this?
Yes, it's mentioned a couple times in the story, but it's not meant to be a major plot point. He just ends up going with the flow of a minor plot point.
Did he always want to be an astronaut or something?
No, it's literally something that came up as a topic of bar conversation between drunks.
Oh my god. That actually sounds like a much better ending than what the Cheaters ending would have been. Probably. Actually, I can get down with this. Drunk conversation being the ending of the game. I can get down with that. That sounds like a good ending.
No, it's actually made to be serious in the ending, but in the actual story, when it's mentioned the first couple times, it's mentioned among drunks conversation.
Okay.
The first couple times it's mentioned. It's taken serious in the ending, though.
Well, it won't be taken seriously amongst us if we do a playthrough, though.
No, it won't, because the trick to that is that in the true neutral ending, once he kicks the final boss's ass, he literally tells him that because I kicked your ass, you're going to give me $50,000.
Awesome. Why did he beat the shit out of a genie? Damn it! I wish I fought that final boss.
Again, that's something for another day. But the problem where endings are really, really, really tedious to work through because you never know where you're going in the end, and if you don't play a game more than once, you never know if you made the right choice or not.
I'd say the worst part about that is you have to play through the game multiple times in order to pull that off.
That's true, and if I'm being embarrassingly honest, just because of how easy it was after I got it right, I had to play Victory about twice before I finally realized all things I needed to do correctly to get the true ending. Which is sad because, like I said, it's the easiest one in the series to get.
Well, that's okay, because considering how short the game is, it's justifiable.
And that's true. In the speedrun sense, the game can be completed in 3 to 4 hours.
Which we may or may not be doing. I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is there anything else you want to cover for the true endings, or do you want to move on?
We're done with endings, but I'm sorry to do this, but I want to go into one other thing before trophies that kind of ties in with it.
Alright.
And this is from way back in the day.
Collectathons?
Collectathons. Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie especially.
Yeah.
Just all those games from back in the day where even though you generally didn't get anything from it, you were just, at that point, because you were a kid or because you were younger, you were actually inspired to get all those things, to get all the items, to get all the jiggies, the notes, the coins. the stars, the puzzle pieces, the shines,
Absolutely.
all of that stuff. You're inspired as a kid because you don't know what's coming. You play a game like that as an adult nowadays, and you think you'll maybe be like, yeah, this game's easy. I can totally do that, all that. Or you're like, fuck it, it's not worth it. There's no real point to it. And at this point, my question is not, are those worth doing, but at what point did they lose their appeal? Did they lose their appeal through the generations of gaming, or through the generations of people just getting older?
I'd say that it's not necessarily they lost their appeal. I'd say the focus shifted. Because I can raise two games that are sort of collectathons, but it's more as like a side thing to level up, like make a character stronger than anything else. Those being Assassin's Creed and Infamous. Infamous is a little bit of a collectathon. You have some things you can go around and collect, like blast shards to make coal stronger, have more electricity depending on how many you're getting. Kind of like heart containers in that way, but not really. Then you have drop points to expand the story a little bit. There's other things like doing missions, but that's as far as that goes. Infamous is sort of collectathon, but it's still focused solely on the story instead of anything else. Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood are games that are very, very much on the collectathon aspect. There is so much that you can get, but each one of them, frankly, is not worth it. Except for when you're going around and you use your vision thing, whatever it's called. I think it's called Eagle Vision. That's a little dorky, I know. You go from building to find you scour these buildings from top to bottom to find a hidden mark on it. And when you assemble all the marks, and hey, do you hear me right now? Okay, cool. Let's go in.
What?
Nah,
yeah, I hear you.
All right, cool. You go from building to get these marks, and you decode them in like a pseudo mini game. And once you have all of them, you have this happened to me in Assassin's Creed 2, by the way, because it seemed interesting enough for me. You get this really obscure footage thing that throws the story completely on its fucking head. Assassin's Creed 2 happened, and now I literally dropped my jaw on the floor. It was just so out there. So everything else in the game, it's not really that worth it. You can get some items like level up your armor and stuff like that, but really, it's not that awesome. So I would say that collectathons haven't really lost their appeal entirely. They're still there. They're still in a lot of 3D adventure games. It's just not as prevalent as it once was. It's not their core focus.
And does that also include whether or not people are just getting older and losing interest, or is it just a matter of they haven't been primarily as important?
I think that's more that the game industry is trying to make games like more streamlined and just solely get you from point A to point B. Yeah, you can get some other things if you want, but you're not like lodged into having to collect things in order to progress the story, is what I'm trying to say.
And that's true. And it actually just hit me how this didn't before. In terms of collectathons, and this is very, very person dependent.
Okay.
Pokemon.
I don't know. I think the collectathons are kind of more optional at that point. Are we talking about collecting the Pokemon themselves or the items?
The Pokemon. Are you? Again, it depends on the person you are. Do you collect what you like? Do you collect what's strong? Or are you a completionist in the sense that you're going to catch all 153, 151, 251, 389, 493, 560, whatever.
649.
649.
And now there's like
as of black and white.
730 as of X and Y, I think.
730. Yeah. Are you?
There's
willing enough to?
There's a good reason why they dropped the logo "Gotta Catch 'Em All" after Gen 1, because after that it just got stupid. Admittedly, back in Fire and Leaf Green, I actually did get all of the Kanto Pokemon. Like, I had Game Boy Advance, the original one, and then I got my SP. So I was just like, yeah, I got Fire Red, so might as well get Leaf Green too, and be that one loser kid off the corner who just plays Pokemon by himself in order to trade with himself. I was that kid. And admittedly, I did get it all, and we mentioned this earlier, the reward you get. But the fucking reward I got, I almost threw myself out the third floor window out of rage. You get a fucking certificate that says, congratulations, you've collected all the Pokemon. What?
You have just unlocked proof of Omega?
Yeah, basically. I was expecting something cool like Professor Oak in a cutscene that like gives you something cool. Because there was 7 islands in that game, which are really, like, I was like, oh my god, there's, like, so much stuff here. Like, we have the unknown, whoever knows what the fuck those things are. We got so many other cool things. I was like, you got a certificate. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just go cry in a corner now.
Maybe I'm just cynical, but I always thought those were a waste of time.
I wish I knew about it beforehand, so I wouldn't have done it. Now, I'm just kind of the guy who just collects most everything, just mostly the things I really like. If I can't find anything, then I'll probably just cheat to get it.
You know how much of a waste of time I actually found that to be?
What, using action replay or just collecting everything manually?
The Sevi Islands.
Oh yeah, dude, those things were a massive disappointment.
See, because I never actually played the full extent of Fire Red until recently, I never knew about those as a kid. So I was playing Fire Red a couple months ago on a Nuzlocke on my PSP.
Ouch.
Because the glory of emulators, and I'm like, okay, I just beat Blaine. Time to kick Giovanni's ass. Because due to dice roll, I ended up with a Venusaur instead of a Bulbasaur, which is what I would have wanted. Or not Bulbasaur, Squirtle. Squirtle, yeah, Squirtle.
Oh, absolutely.
Blastoise,
defense of the gods.
Exactly. So I ended up, yeah. I ended up going there because, oh, what's this? Oh, new story stuff. Oh, cool. What's gonna happen? There's gonna be more Team Rocket stuff. What's gonna happen? Nope, just a waste of time. And I lost half of my team trying to and failing to catch Moltres.
Oh god, dude, yeah, Moltres. I feel your pain, man. That thing was annoying to catch. That thing was easily the hardest of the birds to catch because it had such good attacks.
You know what's more annoying about that is that I could have kicked its ass with my Venusaur because my Venusaur was like 15 levels above it.
Yeah.
And even had some attacks that could have dealt with it, but it was just too fucking low catch rate. It burned through like 3 of my Pokemon.
Yeah,
and at that point I was just like, fuck it, I give up. My other 3 Pokemon are like 12 levels under leveled, so I'm gonna die anyways. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I died there.
Ouch. Sorry to hear that, man.
Those things are a waste. Yeah, that was a waste of time that I could easily have avoided just by going back up to Pallet Town and back up to Viridian City.
Or playing the game regularly instead of doing Nuzlocke.
I played it a couple times before. I just never did that before, so I figured, why not?
I'm a pretty decent Pokemon player, but I will not do a Nuzlocke because it is so frustrating with the RNG kicking in sometimes.
Yeah.
RNG stands for random number generator, by the way, like critical hits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Straight critical hits, man. That is the one thing that killed me in Pokemon Black more than anything else. And I was like, motherfucker.
Oh, well, technically, since we're on the topic of Pokemon,
actually,
the tediousness that is the story of Black and White.
Really? I was going to cover something else in the realm of risk of gaining rewards.
In Pokemon or in something else?
Pokemon.
Go for it.
A couple things to cover in Pokemon, apparently. Yeah. Okay, so the thing I want to cover is raising a team that's actually pretty damn good. And this is...
If you're not competitive, it's not worth it.
No, not at all. I am, like, somewhere in the middle. I like to think I'm competitive, but I don't first anyone else because I know I'll probably win. But
hey,
that's
what happened to you the other day?
You and your fucking Lantern, man. My team was not EV trained. That was just my main stuff. Somehow this fucker's Lantern is able to outspeed my Haxorus. I don't know how that happens, but okay. All right. So anyway, going back to topic. The very first Pokemon team I raised was Swampert, Caesar, and Salamence. Salamence was my mixed attacker, and admittedly, I always wanted to get. This story has a purpose, by the way. I always wanted a fucking Salamence ever since I fought Drake in the Elite Four back in Pokemon Emerald. I was facing his team, his full dragons. I was like, it's got a Shogun, I don't know what that is. It's got a flag on it. I think it's used to die. Holy fuck, what is this? It was everything I wanted Dragonite to be, and then some. So I was like, how the hell do you get Salamence? Where's this thing? I was like, I have no idea. So that was like when I was 11 years old. I fought it. I had no idea how to get it. Then a couple years later, I turned 17. I got Soul Silver. I was like, I've always wanted Salamence, so why not get it? I get this thing, and I fully effort value train it, EV train for short. I get it up to level 50, which is where exactly what I wanted. And all the while I'm using it at Battle Frontier, I'm like getting this this is gonna sound weird coming from me, but I'm getting like this sort of connection to Salamence. Like I know its stats, I know exactly what it's weak to, I know exactly what's gonna kill it. that thing's probably gonna do like 75% of damage to me. Yeah, 80%, close enough. I know exactly what moves I'm gonna kill. So I got this like weird personal connection with my Pokemon now because I spent so much time in the Battle Frontier with them that I eventually like
That's natural.
it became natural. Like even though the stats were like a little off, I still know exactly what he's weak to. The same happened for my Swampert and Scizor. Swampert's gonna tank everything, and Scizor's gonna wreck everything with Stab, Technician, Choice Band, Bullet Punch. Because fuck the game, that's why.
Please tell me you did not nature breed.
I only nature breed. That is as far as I'll go. I will not do IV breeding. That will kill me if I do that. I only do nature breeding because I actually want something with decent stats on it. I didn't do that the first couple of times with my first few legendaries though, but yeah. So what I'm trying to get is, I think that if you into competitive battling, but not like insanely into it, and you raise your Pokemon manually from the ground up, and you're putting all the time and effort into using this team, you eventually like you feel the reward of it like coming to you. Like you knew if you just like hacked out a Salamence, fought like the worst things ever, and you were like super underleveled, you'd probably get your ass kicked, and it wouldn't be as fun. But knowing that the time and effort you put into effort value training something and seeing the results play out, and you have like this connection with it, it's very rewarding in its own right. I think it's actually really cool.
Yeah, I can see that. You can see the reward in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
It's right there in front of you, and you can enjoy it for that.
Yeah, I mean,
and when it's something, and additionally, when when you're rewarded for something like this, and it's not just a one-time thing, something you can continue to use, that's what makes it better.
Absolutely,
is that you always know that your efforts have paid off. You know that forever because you still have that thing to prove it.
Yeah, and considering you can import shit from Gen 3 up to Pokemon X and Y now, well, then again, not quite so much because that Pokemon Bank, fuck you, Nintendo. The point is, you are always going to have that available to you now, and if at any time you need like to change something, you can go back, raise it from the ground up, although in X to Y you can kind of just super train it now. It kind of takes the fun out and specialty out of it, but okay. But yeah, what I'm getting at is you'll always have that available to you no matter what.
Oh no, don't worry. Super Training is its own new brand of tedious.
Oh really?
Yes. The mini games that you have to do for that are more annoying than you would think.
Oh no. And then here I was hearing rumors that the mini games for importing stuff from Gen 4 to Gen 5 were annoying. And there was a chance you can lose it permanently, from what I understand.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
Doing the mini games are easy, but they're just annoying.
Yeah, because you have to do them a lot, or they're just boring.
Both.
Oh jeez.
They're boring. They're boring, and you have to do them like 1,000 times if you want to max out a stat. The general Super Training minigame, it's a soccer game.
Well, that's special.
And actual soccer can be fun, but this type of thing, when you're just trying to tap the stylus on the screen to make it go into the goal, a goal that's constantly moving, by the way, it's really annoying.
Ew.
Yeah.
This is why I like the power anklets, power bracers, and Pokemon Black and White so much. It's because it's the old method I was using, except now I get so much more for it. It's so great.
It's the same old method, but it's just a lot faster.
It is so much faster, dude. I like triple the speed at which I can get something full EV trained. It's amazing.
Yep. But so, going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, is that the story in some of the games can be tedious or boring as hell also.
Yeah.
And for all the wrong reasons. And I'd say it didn't start to get truly bad until Diamond and Pearl, where at that point maybe I'm just a cynical ass, but the game to me was boring from the word go, and it didn't truly get interesting to me at all, even with Steel Dragon and Palkia.
Oh, well,
Dialga and
Palkia, yeah.
And even then, they weren't terribly interesting.
Not really, no. The only one among them that was actually pretty cool. Well, between the two, Palkia was amazing because Water Dragon, and it's actually really cool. Dialga I always thought was overrated as shit. It was actually pretty weak.
It is, yeah. But of the original two, they were just generally boring. And granted, Platinum fixed the story. I wouldn't say immensely, but enough to at least make it passable.
Yeah.
In the original, Cyrus was boring as shit. I don't care if you want a new universe.
He was. Nothing really happened. I played through Pearl myself, and then I played Platinum immediately afterwards. I was like, this is the most dull thing ever.
nothing happens, and all the gym leaders themselves are boring as hell too. The only one that is even remotely memorable among the gym leaders is Minato Namikaze.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say that. I was like, the Forza Kage is a gym leader.
That is the only remotely interesting thing about the original story.
Yeah.
That, and he felt the same way I kind of did actually about Pokemon for a few years between 2005 or 2006 and 2009. That being that, why am I doing this again? God,
Yeah.
this is boring.
The majority of them were pretty slow. I'm not gonna lie.
Because and it's nice to see a character actually feel that too. Why am I doing this again? What's the point?
Yeah.
You can have it if you want. I don't really care.
Yeah. So my personal example of that, and it's gonna sound weird because I both love and hate this game at the same time for guilty pleasure. Pokemon Coliseum and XD. Pokemon Coliseum for me is so damn slow because the animations take forever, and the main villain team of that game, Team Snag'em, don't really feel like they do anything at all.
They don't.
They don't.
They are boring as shit.
Their most interesting gimmick is that they steal Pokemon and turn them into Shadow Pokemon. That's it. They never do anything else. It's not until Pokemon XD happens where they turn Lugia into Shadow Lugia, but even then, you don't see that until the tail end of the game, and they capture it, and then they use it against Greevil, and it's the funniest fucking thing ever. Beating up a human Yoda. Really, that guy is human Yoda.
The problem most people have with Coliseum and XD is the purifying thing is bullshit, and your team is constricted to what you're given. You're not allowed to freely catch Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that is a major pain in the ass when everyone wants a true console RPG. The stadiums were good, but people wanted games with their own story.
Yeah.
And these games, say what you will, but for the most part, they fell on their face.
I completely agree, but I will say from competitive players' point of view, I like the idea that I'm constricted with my options to what I'm given. So I basically have to make the most of what's given to me on the game, because it does give you the Generation 2 stars right from the go. And Pokemon Coliseum basically exists because there was no bridge between Generation 2 and 3. I feel, but
that's true.
Other than that, the only really thing I love about Pokemon Coliseum is the presentation, the art style, the music. That's the only really already good thing I've
I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you there. On a visual and audible level, it is very pleasant. I'll give it to you that.
It is golden.
Everything else,
the only other thing I like, the main reason I absolutely love Pokemon Coliseum is Mount Battle for the aforementioned reasons, presentation and audio. It's great, but even then, yeah, I can fully agree with you. It's long, it's boring, and even then, it doesn't really get interesting until the end where you fight. All of a sudden, Metagross out of fucking nowhere. Oh, okay, thank you. Here, have a Salamence too. Sure, thank you. I always wanted one. No, wait, not Salamence, Tyranitar. Thank you for Tyranitar. That's great.
Nice. I know a friend of mine isn't listening, but I have a friend of mine who is crazy in love with those games, and I'd like to tell him right now, even though he's not listening, and kind of tell you to rub it in your face. Those games are the reason why we never got a true extra stadium, and the reason why every console game for Pokemon we've had since has been a Poke Park game.
What? I wouldn't say that's a specific reason. I would say it was from.
Well, Battle Revolution failed from the word go.
Well, yeah, because Battle Revolution was terrible for its own reasons, because you can't do shit unless you have access to your own save file on the games.
I mean, if you do have access to your own Pokemon, then yeah, it can be fun. But if you're working off the rentals, or no, they don't have rentals. They have you specified teams in that game.
Yep, and the specified teams are shit.
God,
do
awful.
not own Battle Revolution unless you have a decent team. And one of the actual
do not own it unless you're looking for a TV hub for battling.
And you're looking for something really, really, really challenging in Generation 4, outside of Cynthia.
That's true.
Because the final boss of that game, it was like something I forget. He has the fucking broken team of that has a Kyogre, a Mewtwo, and everything else that could possibly just give you so much shit.
I know this isn't something we should be talking about in recording, but Can Battle Revolution connect to Soul Silver and Heart Gold?
Yes, that's how I got my team on there.
I might pick up another copy of Soul Silver, raise up a team, and then have the two of us battle on Battle Revolution and record them.
That would be pretty cool. Just bear in mind.
That is a brilliant idea.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if you're gonna pick up your own copy of Battle Revolution, don't, because it's like $40 for some reason.
I thought you still had one.
I do.
Oh, well, there we go. Yeah, we can just use your Wii.
Huh.
Just the two of us battling together. Because there is online, but the general idea is that you battle someone in the same room.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea. If you battle someone online, odds are they're either hacking or they're running Kyogre. If they're running a Kyogre, you've already lost. Sorry to say. Water spout. Rain Dance Stab, 150 base power, Choice Band, Choice Band. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, Choice Lens. Sorry. Someone's gonna get pissed off at me for getting it wrong.
Moving on, though, and this is the worst it ever got for me, but the absolute tedium of the story in Pokemon Black and White. And I know there are people who are going to argue me into the ground when I say this. People who are going to say it's the best ever, or its story actually was deep and meaningful. Fuck you, no it wasn't.
And before they do, I'll say I just completed Pokemon Black myself a couple of days ago, like last week. And I will agree, it didn't really feel like it did anything story-wise. Or, not necessarily story-wise, but the way it progresses, nothing special happens. Like, you never go out of your way to, like, fight any, like, large gauntlets of trainers. You don't, like, have a water and land god fight each other. You don't rip a hole in our dimension. You just go fight a bunch of dudes who are, funny enough, always weak to fighting types. I don't know why that is. And then you get to the end, and then you get a Pokemon, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. As I was saying,
everything Team Plasma has is really, literally weak to fighting types. It's so funny.
All they have are normal and dark.
And they have the occasional poison type, but that's why you get Excadrill. Really, if you get yourself Pokemon Black and you get Sock and Excadrill, you've won. You have really won.
Basically. But so the problem with it is, its story was awful on every level. And the first problem with this is these games, they were never, ever, ever meant to have a story. They're meant for the brainless collection fun value, not for the deep philosophical thinker type thing. They were not built for that, so don't try to shove it where it doesn't belong. And again, I know people are going to argue with me, but Game Freak saw this too, which is why they went back to a completely one-dimensional story in X and Y.
Yeah.
I mean,
nice.
It was a lot more entertaining, definitely, but it was just as one-dimensional as it had been in the past.
I want to argue, but I know on the inside I can't, because you're absolutely right. For the sheer fact that using this formula with collecting the 8 gym badges and then presenting the Elite Four, you can't really interweave a really strong story with that. It's gonna come off as either incredibly linear or incredibly bland.
That's actually the main problem. The Pokemon themselves are, for the most part, bland as hell. Like, there are a few good, nice ones in the mix,
and one or two broken as shit ones.
But the majority of them are bland as hell. And what was the other? Oh yeah, linearity. This game, you know how linear it is. If you unbend it, this world, this map, it is a straight line bent into a hexagon.
It is, yeah. That's the funny part. I noticed that.
So
this is quite literally the Metroid fusion of the Pokemon games.
So you're going in one line the entire time. There are only maybe 2 places to explore in the whole place, and that's just because afterwards there's this nice little area you can go and surf to off the edge of whatever the first starting town is.
Yeah. And
there's some place you can go surf off there and find some whirlpools and shit in other places because those are remotely interesting, but that's really the only place you have to explore.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's linear as hell. There's no legendaries. There's nothing to break up the flow of the gyms, and it's like you were saying before. No land, no god, no battle of gods, no no earth,
there's no
dimension shattering things. There's nothing to happen.
There's no high points.
What they did ever since what they've done successfully ever since Gen 2 is once you've got, or just before you get the 7th badge, they have some epic clash of worlds or something.
Yeah.
And where something happens, and you're supposed to go save the world. Nope, that doesn't happen until the end. And because you're expecting the standard formula, it fails because in the end, it's forced. You cannot do anything about it. You are forced to catch Reshiram, or in my case, Zekrom. You have no choice. It is part of the story. You can try to kill him 1,000 times.
I wish I knew it was forced beforehand, before I used my Master Ball.
That's the dumbest thing you could probably do, because...
I didn't know! No one told me these things. Motherfucker, I want to use that on Terrakion.
It is a forced capture. You cannot do anything about it. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, the idea of having a battle of legendary dragons with your rival, that could have been interesting. That could have been so much more. But no, fuck it. They don't do anything with it. You just have one battle, and then you're done. And then, they wants to free Pokemon or whatever, and then out of nowhere, out of nowhere, fucking his father shows up and says, yeah, no, we're lying to the entire time. Our entire plan by lying to you was that we want to take over the world.
Of course!
Cue the con clip. Of course! Cue the clip. And it's so annoying because even then, even when it's trying to have a story, even when it's trying to build up N as a character, nope, he's boring as shit. And whether or not you pick the boy or the girl, the Ferris wheel scene is so incredibly gay and hurts. And it's also, comes completely out of fucking nowhere.
And I was playing the girl too, so that was incredibly awkward.
I am the leader of Team Plasma. Fuck you. No, you're not. Also, his team is weak as shit. Sure, he has a Pharaoh seed on there, and that might be a problem.
The thing is, though, he changes teams every time you fight him.
That's not how I remembered. Every time I fought him, he had that Pharaoh seed.
Really? Because every time I fought him, he had something different. And I was just like, oh, well, I got counter strategy for that, bitch.
Well, mind you, I played the game over a year ago, so I played the game in 2012. But, and then there's that, he's not an interesting character by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know what the fuck all the fangirls see in him, but it does not exist. And then on top of that, they try to stick you in with 2 other rivals who are supposed to be your best friends, but nope, they're weak as shit, and they can't do anything to you. Their stories are weak as shit. They don't play into the story at all in any way. They have no interaction with N to do anything, nothing with Getsus. Nope. And they're annoying as hell because you have to fight all 3 of them, and included, every time you go anywhere. You're going to a cave, one of them's there. You just left a city, one of them's there. You just literally walked out of a fucking gym.
The only one of them that's actually decent is Charon, but that's because he actually has a pretty decent team and he uses items. The other one doesn't do anything and is never challenging ever.
And that's actually what I was... That actually leads into another thing, though, is that Sharon will fucking battle you right outside of a fucking gym. You just fought a hard, or in my case, or in both of our cases, incredibly fucking easy battle. Say you're low on health, this guy's gonna kick your ass, and guess what?
It's the blue of this game.
And if it wasn't bad enough that there were 3 of them, Blue or Green or Gary or Asswipe or whatever the fuck you want to call him, he appears maybe 4 or 5 times throughout the course of the game. These guys, they're in every fucking city. You go battle them no less than 20 fucking times.
Yep.
And they're annoying as shit, they're weak as shit, and they just serve to waste time to pad out the game.
Yep, basically.
And guess what? Once you beat the game in the story, you think, oh, there's going to be something interesting here on the right side of the map. Nope. There's empty villages with random people that don't mean shit to the story.
Most of what there is an ice dragon sitting in a crater, but that's about it.
That's basically it, and that's easy as shit too. Level 75 or not, he is an easy as fuck
after it with Chansey.
I think you can quick ball him.
That'd be great.
You know what's actually funny is, and this is kind of irrelevant, but I was playing X. I caught Xerneas first turn with a quick ball.
Well, you can do that with Dialga and Palkia as well, because both of their catch rates are well above what the other legendaries are. They actually have the same catch rate as a Patrat.
For those who don't know, a quick ball on the first turn gives you a 4 times catch rate.
I love those things so much.
They're basically how you win X and Y.
Oh, great.
But so basically, the legendaries themselves aren't even that interesting, all the ones that appear in post. Sure, Reshiram might be useful, and Landorus, or whichever is the one you said you wanted to get from me. But outside of that, there's basically nothing going on. You can find Getsus afterwards, supposedly. I never did it. I never bothered. I never gave a shit.
I'm probably gonna do it anyway, just for the giggles and completion's sake.
The one interesting thing they had post-story, not White Forest, not Black City. There's this one city on the beach where, no, not that too, but not that. You can find HM 8 or 9.
Yeah, I found that. They're so random.
Into some random ruins underwater, which is a nod to Ruby and Sapphire. Which, please hurry the fuck up, Game Freak. I'm losing my patience.
Ruby and Sapphire confirmed.
Basically, there's actually a volcano inside a cave inside Black and White 2. There's a pit of lava.
I'm getting myself crowd on.
But so that's interesting because they try to have some unknown language thing where there's a language you can't read, but ultimately all that's in there is literally just the Arceus plates.
Oh, and you can also get $1,700,000 Pokemon worth of relics in there. It's great. As soon as I found out, I was like, doing this.
Easy
Absolutely
money too. The only remotely interesting thing at all in the whole game, Cynthia, because she appears out of fucking nowhere, challenges you immediately, and does not give you a chance to say yes or no to let you blind.
No, you can say yes or no. I just said yes because I was like, well, what's going to happen? Okay, I need to tell the story now. By the time I fought Cynthia, I was done EV training, pre-evolved Hydreigon and pre-evolved Volcarona. So I was just kind of like had 2 of my main team and 2 HM slaves and all the good stuff. So I went to this town. There was 3 houses there besides the entrance going in. The first one on the far left is completely empty. I was like, this is odd. The one in the middle was also empty. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. One on the right, fucking Cynthia. And was like, what? Where'd you come from? I have an erection and I'm scared.
Not gonna lie, I actually dropped my DS the first time I saw her in there.
I was just like,
yes.
What?
What?
Check, please. Needless to say, I fought her because I was just morbidly curious what she has. She has level 75 Pokemon. Christ. Alright,
that
so...
she does.
I like how we're so far off topic from the original idea of this podcast.
No, it's still there, just that the game is horribly tedious. Now we're just going into vivid fucking detail. And this is a game that needs it. That needs to go into detail for why it sucks. I don't know why people like it. And you know what the sad thing is? They had one gimmick going for it. One gimmick. And it worked, kind of, in Black and White, but they threw it out the fucking window in Black and White too.
Oh, the unique Pokemon only to that game, yeah.
Yes. Yes, they have 156 new Pokemon. This land was supposed to be the land for isolationists. Yep. You have only what's new. There is no old until you beat the game and suddenly fucking Rhyhorns every patch of grass in the White Forest.
Millions of stories about that.
I will never get over that. I was told you can find some great stuff, some high-level stuff, some great stuff.
You can. You just gotta look.
I was in there for 10 minutes running into every patch of grass. The first thing I found, Rhyhorn every fucking time. And granted, you can do some stuff with Rhydon, but I caught 1 or 2 of them. That was all I needed. I found like 40 of them. I need to send you a guide
as to what you can do in White Forest, because you really can't find different stuff. I think it's because, like, you didn't have the condition set right, so you only ran to Rhyhorns. Again, I'll link you a guide later, because there actually is some cool stuff in there.
I'm sure there is, but it's just I don't even care anymore.
Game Freak needs to elaborate on this shit whenever you get a new thing. Like, I'm just gonna take like 20 seconds on this. Back in Soul Silver, you had a Safari Zone. You had the initial Safari Zone, great, you can catch up there. All of a sudden, you beat the game. You can manipulate the odds of catching different Pokemon, like fucking Metagross, out of nowhere. But I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? Well, you just gotta arrange some blocks in this area, and you're good. What? They never explained this at all in the game. I only learned about this through mobile pages.
You mean the rock? You mean the
rock
smash
thing?
Not
the rock smash thing. It was like you buy items and you put them in the Safari Zone. I don't know the details about that because it's so weird and so bizarre, and the game never explains it, and it's only on Bulbapedia. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. It's like how they never explained effort values in game whatsoever until Super Training came around. Yeah.
Yep. But so Black and White 2 made the game even worse. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did not finish the game. It was so boring, and its story was so stupid that I got up to Clay, and I was like, "Fuck it, trading it in. This game is not worth playing." They ruin their main draw to that entire series of Black and White, the Black and White series, they lose their draw immediately when I can go out into the first patch of grass and catch a fucking Rilo. You lose your appeal immediately.
It's pretty much far and gone when you can just walk out and catch yourself 7 EVs to get all the evolutions, and you can get Lucario, which, by the way, as soon as you offer Lucario in the middle of the story, you basically won. There is no denying it. You've won.
So the game is easy as shit at that point, and all the new characters are boring as hell. Fuck, what was his name? The guy from Black and White 2. The one everyone liked because he had a quillfish for hair.
The male trainer?
No, not the male trainer. The friend, the rival.
Because I haven't played Black and White 2 yet.
I think you would have memorized those cutscenes immensely.
Nope. Even though they are the best thing that they have ever done. Nope.
You know what's the worst thing about Black and White 2 is that they had those awesome trailers for months and months, and after playing the game and scenes that those things would happen, nope, those scenes are entirely promotional. Those are not in the games.
And those promotional things are by and far blow away everything that the Pokemon anime has ever done. In less than 10 minutes, you've managed to sabotage your own mainstream object with promotional art. Congrats.
And then Origins happened and didn't even further.
But anyway, I think we're getting a little too far off track right now.
So the point is, those games are tedious as hell just for the fact of existing. I could tolerate it in Diamond and Pearl just by the nature of I'm coming off of Emerald, so I'm on a Pokemon high. I can tolerate them for as useless as they are.
It's a physical special split. Everything's good. Things finally make sense now.
And, that reminds me. The one gameplay mechanic they added into Black and White, it only happens 2 times in the whole
rotation
game.
Battle?
So, rotation battle and triple battles. Those things happen twice in the whole game if you're not talking about actual
absolutely right.
battles.
I've only had it happen to me a couple times before.
So the one thing that's touted as their new best mechanic, and it really is a good mechanic. That's really one of that and the music are the best things to come out of Black and White. Because it's running somewhat off of the same mechanics as double battles, but given that there's an actual range now, if someone is on the complete opposite side, you cannot touch that Pokemon. So for example, on the other hand, if you're in the middle and you use Discharge, you've automatically won the game.
Yep. Or if you use Earthquake and you have 2 flying types on your team.
Eruption, no, Eruption specifically, because Eruption does not target your teammate. You use Eruption, and you've won any triple battle immediately.
Nice.
And rotation battle is a bit harder to work with, but it's still fun. So I enjoy those things for what they are, but because they don't use them like ever, they're basically worthless in the actual game if you're not doing versus battles.
Maybe they did it more in Black and White too. Maybe.
Probably not. But so the best thing to come out of the entire Black and White games was their music. But I guess we should
because music is seamless. Okay, well, I think you just spent a good 20 minutes talking about that. No, not even 20 minutes, like half an hour. And
probably. I can go for a lot longer when it comes to this.
Anyway.
But, all right. Sorry, I know this took forever, but I'm sorry. The trophies and achievements, like you were saying, like an hour ago. Sorry to keep pushing that back.
Trophies and achievements. Okay, I need to get my train of thought going again outside of Pokemon. Okay. Alright, got it now. Okay, so trophies and achievements are by and large argued as either completely useless and should not be in the games ever because they're just bragging rights. And others will say, "Oh my god, they're amazing!" I lean a little more towards the latter, but I don't make it my goal in life to get like 500 platinum trophies. They're just there. I'm like,
you're not a trophy hunter, but you understand the fact that they will give you an incentive to do something, even if there is no real reward for it. Just for the point of saying that you have done it and that you can prove
exactly.
That you've done
and the best part is PS3
really
games and PS4 games both share trophies, so now you can. Everything you get is now locked onto one account, so that's the best part. But anyway, going to trophies. My argument is that they're there as more personal incentive. You can do it, and it'll allow you. It is incentive for you to push your game on something to its furthest, so you can say you've conquered this mountain. It is yours. You have rocked it. You never had to touch it again because it is yours. You own this bitch. Some games are really gratifying like that. Like, I was playing the Ratchet and Clank HD collection. A lot of the stuff in there, well, again, I've already destroyed that series when I was a kid, is really good incentive for me to keep playing and get all the stuff I had originally. So I'm not just bored. I'm like, okay, I completed it again. Now I could go on, move on with my life, yada, yada, yada. Some games are really good like that. Some of them are really too fucking easy, such as any LEGO game that has ever been released that has trophies on it.
Storm Generations and Storm 3. Can I?
I still don't have the platinum on Generations. Sure, go for it.
If I may. In Storm 3, I got the platinum same day. Not even 10 hours after starting the game, I got the fucking platinum. I got all the S ranks on all the boss battles. I got all the chapters of the story. I got all the hidden story events. I got all of the everything. And I did that in one fucking day. I know I didn't have to, but I was bored that day, and I had nothing better to do.
I just beat Class Ninja 1 in 20 minutes, but that's not saying a lot. But, yeah, okay, so if you have any like third-party, like just shovelware kind of game, it's probably going to be really easy to platinum. They're not worthwhile. They're not. I mean, you can get a free platinum if you're like one of those platinum whores and you're just like getting millions of platinum trophies everywhere. They're there, but you don't have no reward. There's no incentive to doing it.
Well, that depends on what type of game it is. Like if it's an arcade style game, like Galaga Legion.
I mean, I'm not.
Where a game like that has literally only like 10 or 15 trophies, and then going even further with something like Tekken Revolution, where most of those trophies are just do a combo, win a battle, increase your rank, or literally just keep playing for. And
I'm not saying
7 days.
It's not a game. If it's a game you like, you shouldn't go for it. By all means, go for it. That's what the hell I did with Ratchet and Clank. That's what I've done with pretty much every Tekken game ever released, minus Tekken Hybrid, which I need to get. I'm saying that if you're one of those people who will get a LEGO game just specifically because you can platinum it within 2 minutes of firing it up, they're not worth it. That's really just really bad bragging rights at that point. But then there's games out there that are retarded to platinum, and I'm
Dragon Ball Rage and Blast 1 and 2. There is some major bullshit in those.
I can go on for a while.
You know what's the worst kind of trophy? Or
no, it's somewhere between grinding and doing an impossible task within a time limit.
Nope, not even that. Trophies that require you to get records or something or ranks in online.
My God, you're absolutely right.
Any games that involve trophies that involve the online modes, no. If you're not a competitive person, you shouldn't have to be forced into that. Well, you aren't, but if you want completion, you shouldn't have to be. And more than that, what about the games that came out in 2009, 2010, 2011, and even 2012, where their communities are all but dead? There is no way to do it. It is impossible.
Some online servers are completely gone now.
And what's even worse than that is when some of those require you to have online ranks for trophies. That is the epitome. And
not like just winning like 100 matches online. We're talking about like getting top ranks in leaderboards, like top of the food chain in order to actually get it.
Oh,
there have only been a few trophies I've come across from what I've seen that have been really fucking impossible to get. The first one that comes to mind is Wipeout HD, but that's just because it's a racing game. In racing games, when you're going at... It's not too bad. Actually, yeah, it is quite bad if you're going for some of the trophies because the AI is super aggressive and super smart, and some of the times you have to get are literally millisecond perfect. You cannot be off in the slightest. Some racing game...
Well, it depends on what racing game you're playing. I haven't had that problem in games like Grid 2 or like or a little
bit also more on a company that makes them too. Like whoever makes the trophies can give the incentive to do it. A good example of something I can give that's a bullshit trophy out of nowhere is Ratchet and Clank 1. Get 1 million bolts in the original game, which granted doesn't seem hard in comparison to 2 and 3 where you have multipliers up the ass and can literally get like 1 million just by shitting yourself. Ratchet and Clank 1, you have to play a game like 10 times in order to be able to get that without exploiting glitches of some kind. It is a fuckload of bolts. And that's completely out of left field, and that's a good example as to just throwing in something that's really just either impractical or unreachable.
Hold up, you cut out for a minute there. Yeah, it's fuzzy. I can still hear you, but it's fuzzy, so that might be
okay.
a problem.
Well, I'm just saying that's kind of one of the reasons. You can still hear me, right? I think another good example.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
I think another good example of bullshit trophies is Final Fantasy 13-1. Trying to beat the Adamant toys, that is going to require at least 100 hours of grinding to be able to reach.
Definitely. Fuck. Not even that. The fucking cactars.
Yeah, dude. I'm glad you know about the game. That is that. I've only gotten like 50% of trophies in that game.
I've played 13. I've played 13 twice on 360 and PS3. I know the pain. I know the pain very well.
Granted, beating bosses isn't necessarily a bad thing to make when you're going for trophies. They're a good incentive, like we said earlier with Final Fantasy games. I'm saying that when you're going for a trophy, it should not be a super boss that you have to waste your life in order to grind to get. When you're
it also should not be something that you can immediately break the game with. Exactly. Anyways, Hekaton Shear, death. Hekaton Shear and death. You break that game
essentially. I think there really is a balance you have to hit if you're going to make trophies of any value. And this goes for achievements as well because they're basically the same thing. You have to strike a balance between the two if you're going to make any sort of player incentive to go for them.
There needs to be a balance between fair, fun, and challenging. If you don't have all three of those things, they're basically worthless. It's like how in some RPGs from NES and from Nippon Ichi, and I'm not even kidding, give you a trophy for renaming your character.
I guess some of the stuff in Neptunia 1 is in Neptunia 1 there is kind of some instances of that, like where you just gotta like tag out, name your character, and you get stuff like that. But there's also a lot of other stuff in there you kind of miss out on too. You can hear me right now, right?
Yes, I can. I was trying to make a joke, but I was too quiet for that.
Neptunia 1 does have... It's not that hard to platinum, honestly. The only real hard part is that you have to get all of your shares like in the right places in order to experience all the events to get everything. That's kind of along the lines of you have to experience everything in order to actually get something, otherwise you're fucked like 10-2. But it's not that. You can go back and video other stuff.
That's true. And... Are we good on trophies, or should we go a little more?
If you want to hit a good balance of it, I think Storm Generations is a very good example of what you should do. And the example of... fuck you. The example I'm using is getting... The hardest one to get in that game, trophy-wise, is you have to get 80% of the tiles that are available to you. By the time that you can possibly get. By the time you complete the story mode and you've gotten like a grand amount of things out of the way, you have maybe like 77-78% of the trophies or titles out of the way. After that, you just need to play online, and you should be able to unlock the rest of them. So by the time, it's a very small margin. You only need to go slightly out of your way to reach it. Other than that, any other game that requires you to get 1% is bullshit, because there's always that off chance you're gonna miss something, and then you'll be fucked if the game is programmed that way. But again, I can understand it's hard and difficult to like gauge where that balance between fun, fair, and challenging is. Because I can understand a game developer is not just gonna sit down and play his own game multiple times and be like, okay, this will be perfect, this will be perfect, this will be perfect, this will be perfect. They don't have time for that. I understand that. But even then, you should at least get some like people on board to be like, okay, we need you guys to decide what kind of trophies would be great for this game. That would be a really good way of going about and doing it, and like actually designating where the average mark should be for doing that stuff. Okay, I'm done.
You need a solid understanding of how each individual game works to make them effective. Because at that point, if you don't have that, there are some games where you'll be like, you'll have completed the entire game, we'll only have 12% of the trophies.
It's all about working,
because what you need to do is so annoying.
It's all about playing by your own rules.
It's not even worth doing.
Yeah.
Essentially.
I suppose if you're to lean I'd say that you should lean a little closer to being challenging than easy, because at least then you have some room to work and you can make it so it's not as easy to just go through and platinum everything. Like Tekken Revolution, holy fuck, I literally platinumed that game within like 3 days of getting it. It's so easy, but that's all.
Which is funny because one of their trophy sets get to have played for at least 9 days.
That's true. I forgot about that. Never mind. But Tekken Tag Tournament 2, I applied them within like 2 weeks because that required extensive amount of getting through stuff. But there was also an example there that was just really bullshit tedium. That was, you have to get Tekken Emperor with one of your characters in offline rank. And thank God it's offline rank. If you had to get Tekken Emperor in online rank, no one would ever have that game. Outside of like 2 Korean players. Holy God.
Nope.
At least then it just kind of boils down to grinding, and grinding is mindless and not necessarily fun, but it can be easy depending on how you go about doing it.
That reminds me, what rank is Tekken Emperor?
30. It's 30th Dan. True Tekken. Then after that, it's Tekken God, which is 50th Dan, and True Tekken God, which is 100th Dan. I'm not doing it.
Not gonna bother with those, but the first one isn't too terribly far. I haven't played in like 2 months, but last I checked, it was level 22 or 23.
It's not too bad. It just requires you to like stick to finding characters of your own rank over and over again. Even then, you can set the difficulty to easy, so it's not that bad. It just requires a little bit of time, but that's about it.
Alright. And now I suppose we should get on to the last one, or at least one of the last ones. And I guess this kind of goes back to Black and White, but in a general topic, not in an individual game. When a game's story itself is tedious to play, and it's amazing that this didn't come to me sooner. But when a game itself, like its story or its gameplay, like you're not trying to unlock anything, just going through the game itself is just tedious or boring, and that's the mark when you know your game is just bad. When doing everything or just playing through the story that's supposed to be so important is so boring or so annoying.
Point, you're relying entirely on your gameplay to carry the game. If you don't even have gameplay down, you're fucked.
Yep. And so my main point with this is because I spent an entire summer doing this because I was bored as shit, and it was not worth it. That is, I completed the whole of Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2. The game that has 100 characters, 500 story fights, and its own separate Ultimate Battle Mode thing. I completed all of them, and it was boring, and it was tedious, and it was pointless as shit.
That's not really story mode. That's just like going back to tediousness and trying to get the platinum trophy.
It's not even a trophy. It's just for the point. It's just doing it, and it's not just that though. It's Dragon Ball Raging Blast 1. Yeah. The story in there, it had some pretty cutscenes, but it was boring as shit. And I know this is setting a bad tone for what we're about to do in the future, but basically a lot of the recent DBZ games in general have been boring or tedious and pointless as hell. Where, sure, there've been some fun in their gameplay, but their story or all the things you need to do that isn't in verses are just
Raging Blast 1 is boring because it's long. If it like cut stuff short and actually compressed itself a little bit more, it wouldn't be as bad. And that's because Raging Blast 1's gameplay is so stilted, and because they try to broaden the scope to as much as they can without getting into BT2 territory. They're really setting. It's really, really just long and boring. Yeah, and considering you both know the story in, out, and sideways, and you probably will, and the audience will too by the time they watch a few of my playthroughs.
And then it's getting into the games that require you to have items to get things done or to move it all.
Oh yeah, grinding to get shit.
Grinding items, not weapons, not characters, not levels, not stats. Grinding items, collecting items. Bull fucking shit. You know what I did the first time I played Storm 2 back in 2010? I downloaded a save file, and I just stuck to verses, because after 2 hours of just having to grind for flowers to progress the story, I was like, fuck this, I'm going to verses.
Yeah, I can see why. I can't blame you on that one, honestly.
And because it was just the story would not move. You could not go further. You could not do certain events. It was just
that is a bad thing actually. When you're doing a story mode and it halts you until you grind specifically to get one item, or you have to find something and it's like so out of your way you wouldn't be able to see it normally.
And this leads into a game, sadly, that has this same problem to the extreme. But it's sad because this is a game I actually really like. That if ever it becomes cheap, I want to do a run through. Mm-hmm. One Piece Unlimited Adventure for the Wii. It's an action adventure quest game for the Wii. Huh. The characters basically they crash landed on an island, and because they lost their ship, they lost all their items and all their stuff, and so you have to go around collecting and breaking and making and fusing and doing alchemy and shit to create items. And you know what?
But that can be done well, like in Metroid Prime.
It can, but it isn't. And this is a game that is called out for it. That's basically the one flaw everyone has with it, is that it's long and it's mostly just item collecting, and the item collecting is boring as shit. And the item collecting used to mix stuff does not make sense. Literally, the weirdest and dumbest thing I've ever found in there was I have to mix drinks with metals, not just
what?
Alcoholic drinks, mind you, not chemical liquids. Alcoholic drinks with metals to make a wall disappear. So it's not something scientific like mixing metals and chemicals to make a bomb or something. To make a chemical bomb, it's literally just you have these items. They've magically made a wall disappear so you can continue your adventure.
Fucking padding.
And in some cases it's not bad. You need some very sharp rocks, and you need a pretty decent stick to build yourself a pickaxe. That makes sense. Some of them make sense. You need a pickaxe, you need a net, you need a shovel. Some of these, they make sense. But the problem is that there's just so much of it, and that makes up like 75% of the game, that it's just hard to sit through. And while I have 100% completed that game, it was a very long and very slow and very tedious journey.
Do I have any games in my collection that fit that criterion?
Oh, Jesus Christ. And you know what the sad thing is? I still like that game for what it is. Running around, combat, fighting characters, platforming. It's still fun. It's just... Oh, God.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think I have anything in my game collection that actually has anything like that. That's because it's mostly fighting games. Huh. Interesting. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Just selling roadblocks out of nowhere. Just make it so you can't do shit until you actually complete certain objectives. Is there any Final Fantasy games that do stuff like that? Like make it so you can't progress until you like get an item, or it just pads itself so indiscriminately. Oh wait, padding! Fucking Final Fantasy 13 too. Duh.
Exactly.
You know, I still kind of like 13 too because of the whole Pokemon collection system thing, but that's just me. The fucking time puzzles.
God, no.
Have you played those yet?
Yes, I got to the puzzles and the
clock puzzles.
Clock puzzle, the step puzzles.
Do you see my problem now?
Yes, those things were annoying as shit, and there were so fucking many of them too.
I know, dude. The step one, okay, I can kind of work around because just like with some prior knowledge, I had to download a custom Java program someone made on YouTube, and I download that so I can specifically calculate how to beat the clock puzzles.
Jesus Christ!
Never before have I seen a puzzle that almost broke me to my core.
God. You know what else is annoying about that game? Is
what?
While it's a visually stunning and beautiful game like 13, some of the locations... Well, that too. The story is bullshit, but...
the story is disjointed as hell.
But some of the locations are either so bright or so dark that if you play it in a dark room, you will go nearly blind sometimes looking at some of these places.
Yeah, it's quite terrible, especially in that one jungle area.
No, not even the jungle. Like, the first area you go to, whatchamacallit, the city place, the one where you fight Atlas.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
After you fight Atlas, looking around some of those places in the rain and in the dark and at night, I nearly went blind playing that for the first time. Jesus.
Are you playing on high-def TV, or are you playing on standard?
I played it on them both, and both gave me the same reactions.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But
at least the game gives you the option to turn the text to large, so I can actually reach it now.
Oh god.
Thank God.
I'm gonna warn all of you: never, never, never play an HD game, especially a text-heavy game, on a standard definition TV. You will not be able to read. Your face will be inside the screen. I first played, and it was amplified by the fact that I was playing it with worse resolution. The first time I played Final Fantasy 13 was on an Xbox 360, which I think at that point they were only topping out at 720 barely in the year 2009. On a standard dev TV, the text was tiny as shit. I could not read.
Oh my god, I had the same thing too on the PS3. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh god.
I had the subtitles on, I just saw lines, and I saw snow. I was like,
Do I want to read the idiot or do I want to hear the idiot?
Well, it's either that or hear all the other characters moan and bitch about their lives. I was like, I'll take snow.
I don't know, I think some of them are kind of justified.
Really? I've heard the only other one I've heard that actually has decent dialogue in 13.1 is Lightning, and because her idea is just to beat shit out of everything.
She is a sarcastic ass, yes, and it's glorious.
I know. So anyway,
But,
yeah, Roblox aside, that is not how you do it.
Oh, any games that give you any sort of roadblock where you can't progress unless you do a certain thing or go a certain place.
Oh, wait, I just got one. Where you have to grind to a specific point in order to progress.
Yes.
Like, level-wise. Legacy of Goku 2, that is one of the only problems I have with you.
Oh. No.
And that gives me phenomenal otherwise. It's just the pacing to actually get shit.
Oh, I'm looking at this right now. I can't believe this never came to me before. Tales of Grace's F. There are some points where if you do not grind, everything is going to kill you. And there's one area where this maze called Wall Bridge, where you're running around this giant castle from the outside, trying to pull and push levers to open doors and unlock gates and other shit. And oh my god, the first time I tried that, I was like, okay, that's minorly annoying. Second time I tried that, okay. Third time, I did not touch the game for 2 months, and then I tried it again. Nope, I touched that game in maybe June, and I finally got past it. But when I finally got past and started doing other things, then again I didn't touch it since I have not touched this game since June. I have this game in front of me right now, and I have not touched Tales of Grace's F since June, which is actually pretty sad because ignoring the annoying, tedious parts of the world map, the game is actually pretty fun, and the story is pretty good.
Does it have 2-player mode?
It has a 4-player mode.
Oh,
so
fuck.
if I ever get around to completing it, and definitely New Game Plusing it, we can tackle it. It would just be a very long time.
Wonderful. So, anything else you want to cover for that, or should I transition to my last idea?
I'm trying to think of anything else here. Nope, I'm good.
Alright. So, last thing I want to cover in Tedium, and this is more from player to player, depending on how you do it, and the results may vary, so bear with me. That's more for fighting games. And I don't mean like fighting games as like story mode or just like grinding. I'm just meaning stuff in general. Learning characters. Is learning a specific character in a specific game worth your time and is actually fun?
Tekken Tag 2?
That's really the key word. That's really, yeah, Tekken Tag Tournament too, but I'll get to that in a sec. The key word here is fun. Is a character worth a while? Is it, why would you use him? Or why would you specifically use this character? I think that if you're gonna have a character you want to use, it has to be a character it has to be a game that has a specific amount of depth to it, and is a character that would be nice to use and is fun overall. So a good amount of characters in Soul Calibur kind of automatically ruled out because that game honestly feels shallow the more I play it.
Yes, it is.
It's because I'm so spoiled on Tekken and it's practically infinite depth you can play the game. Holy shit.
That's true.
Yeah. I'm just gonna glance over some lowbrow titles right now. Naruto Ultimate Ninja 1 through 4. I haven't played 5 yet. Those games are shallow as balls, so no matter what amount of depth you put into them, you're really not gonna get anything overboard outside of them. And I'm talking about like depth as in like metagame. like competitive wise, if you're like trying to play Art of War by whoever that guy was against your opponent, how well can you do it? Also, Ninja does not give you freedom of movement or offensive options to do it.
Didn't you know the only truly competitive Naruto games are the Clash games?
Oh, absolutely. And some storing games if you're not using Madara. Lag no jutsu.
Lag no jutsu.
Absolutely.
And also one-dimensional control no jutsu.
Yep. Stagnant combos no jutsu.
But yeah, there are some games where learning a character is incredibly pointless or useless. Because
and also just learning the game overall is just bland as shit.
True. There are some times where it doesn't matter how good a character is, if you don't enjoy them, you're not going to care. And if there's a steep learning curve, you're basically going to give up before you even start because they're not worth it. You're not going to have any fun out of it. And I know people will argue against me or even with me, and I'm actually in the middle on this. Dissidio Duodecim Final Fantasy. There's 30 characters in that, and every one of them handles very differently and very uniquely. Some of them are very easy to pick up. Some of them are honestly pretty hard to pick up, unless you have absolutely pitch perfect timing. And
yeah,
XDeath, and the like. And if you don't.
But I think those are more characters that are geared more towards actually facing human players instead of facing CPU, because CPU will read your movements all day, unless you physically counterattack with Sephiroth or characters like that.
Exactly, and so there's the point where people are like, oh yeah, this character does this, I don't care. And then there are some characters.
Warrior of Light.
Well, he's bland as they come, but he can still be kind of fun.
He can, but his lack of death compared to there's a lot of other characters that do everything that he does except better.
That's true. You want a true example of fighting game tendencies and traditions. You want to go with Prish because she's a brawler, and if you know what you're doing, you can infinite combo her break attacks forever because her combos are centered on linking and extending her combos.
That's ridiculous. And if you want a really fun brawler, I recommend Jack because his actually requires some pretty precise input and timing. It's kind of like hit confirming in Tekken, and that's why I kind of like him a lot because you can have some serious fun with his combos. You can get wall rushes, you can get bravery and HP attacks. You can get a whole bunch of cool shit with him, so that's why I use him a lot, except when playing ad hoc because the lag makes him unplayable. Fuck.
That depends where you are.
Yeah, true.
But so ultimately, it depends on the type of game you're playing and the character.
I play a lot of fighting games personally, so I'm just gonna glance over some right now that I think are very
and maybe it's because I just don't have a prior history like you do, but I can jump into Tekken Tag Tournament 2 and try literally anyone and have a lot of fun with them. And more specifically, what I've had a real lot of fun with, especially climbing the Ghost Battle rankings, is the Brazilians. The Brazilians are fun as hell.
You just made an enemy of every Tekken player out there.
People don't like Eddie Gordo. And,
everyone hates fighting them online.
I don't do online, so it doesn't matter, so...
Okay, well, if you're not playing other people online, you're not spamming the Capoeira characters, no one's gonna hate you that much.
Does that include their spin kicks or their breakdancing?
Both.
But I like doing the handstand spin kicks.
That's nice, except they high crush every move in the entire game. It's so ridiculous to be able to try to fight them traditionally.
And that's why they're great for money grinding.
Yeah, money grinding. If you don't want everyone on the internet to hate you when you're playing against other people on PSN, don't use the Capoeira characters. Unless you like the hate mail. I'm just saying, man. I could teach you how to use Mishimas. They're actually, I know how to use them decently well.
I don't know. Something about them or the personalities of the characters just kind of bores me.
You really have to study the characters then, because each one of them I find to be incredibly unique and pretty damn cool.
Jin is flat as a wall.
Jin, I will give you a spot as well, but the backstory going into his character is what makes him interesting. It's more the backstories about each of the characters that make them really cool.
Isn't he also kind of...
Heihachi is just infinite amounts of fun to watch. Kazuya is basically the Vegeta of the series, more or less. There is no secret.
The Mishima family relationship is basically described as who can you be the biggest prick to, and how much of a prick can you really be?
Heihachi wins that hands
Definitely. I love his ending from 5 or 6, whichever one it is. The one where he tries to kill them by sending them off into space, and then he falls out of the spaceship.
I know. I think that might have been 5. I don't know. I haven't got his ending in 5 because, Heihachi sucks in 5 and 6 compared to Tekken Tag Tournament 2, where he's top tier as fuck. But that's something for when I do more Tekken videos. Anyway. So, if you want good depth of fighting games and something to actually get a good amount of time out of that's worthwhile, games to avoid are Naruto Ultimate Ninja 1 through 4. Bloody Roar 4 because I picked it up for the PS2 and it is lousy as shit. What other games are there down that shelf? I have a growing hatred of Soul Calibur because of Soul Calibur 5, honestly. And honestly, because every time someone picks Baldo, I lose. I don't know. I just had this growing animosity towards Soul Calibur. I can't explain why. If I'm not using Nightmare or Siegfried, that is. Now, games that...
Shallow as shit in shallow as shit in gameplay, or shallow as shit in evolving story?
Gameplay. Soul Calibur doesn't require nearly as much depth as Tekken does. And honestly, I've just been so pampered on Tekken lately, it hurts.
That's true.
But anyway, I would also say the original Budokai 1 through 3 Infinite World also fit into that category. Because as fun as they are, and for nostalgia value, that aside, the only way you're going to get any real good depth is if you equip items that make you substitute teleport more, and if you're any good with guard canceling. Guard canceling is your main go-to thing for actually getting depth out of the game.
Budokai 3 is the game to play.
Budokai 3 is a game to play, and it's still the best. Budokai 2 if you want fun shit and giggles, Budokai 1 if you like that weird modeling they have.
If you want it to look like a PC game from the mid-90s.
And if you like terrible games, Infinite World. Thank you, Shin Budokai. I never wanted you here to begin with. I kid. Shin Budokai is actually a pretty decent game. It's just I don't like how they fuse it with Budokai 3 and Infinite World. No one asked for that. Anyway, so if you want some games with actually some pretty good depth, I'd say the middle ground between ease of use and actual complexity would be the Naruto Classic Ninja games.
This is true. Characters are fun.
For a seemingly shallow.
Characters are both fun and easy, and if you really want to go,
and they're varied as
characters also handle differently.
Varied as well. That's very good. That's very true.
Like, for example, there are some characters that, if you know what you're doing, you can even make great use out of the characters that are boring. Like, for example, maybe it's just me, but I really like Sai, so I can make some good use of Sai, even if he is boring as a character.
Yeah, absolutely. Sai is a very good zoner in that game. And I'll admit, my love for Itachi didn't really grow until I started using the Classic Ninja Revolution 2. So that's why I absolutely love him as a character, even though he's not still one of the best written characters in the show. Anyway. And that's how I also got my absolute hard-on for Kakashi with Sharingan.
Yamato for best ultimate.
Yes.
For most brutal ultimate, I should say.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, Clash of Ninja really strikes a good balance between fun, easy-to-use gameplay and pretty good complexity to it. Cause you have your poke screens, you have your combos, you have your setups, and you have other good mix-ups, just like feinting your opponent. And even in Clash of Ninja 2, the AI can get really fun, difficult at times, if depending on the difficulty in the character. Just don't use Orochimaru because everyone will hate you ever because Orochimaru is the fucking shit.
There needs to be a Revolution 4 or a Storm or whatever the fuck for the series. That needs a reboot because after not having a game since 2009, people saying the Naruto games haven't had depth since then, they really need to make a comeback on the Wii U because Naruto...
Revolution 3, despite me not liking new changes, is a pretty deep game compared to the rest of the series.
It really is. It just has so much going on.
It's just half the roster. It's just half the roster is bland, and you're not going to use.
The problem is that 70% of the characters are literally just holdovers from previous games, and
absolutely,
I would say take them out, but that would have a lot of people saying, "I like those people. Why did you take them?"
Yeah, exactly. It just don't make it so you have to use them. That's all I ask.
Or if you're gonna keep characters in, do something to make them interesting. Rebalance them. Give them new attacks. Do anything. Yeah. Like even if they haven't fought, just give them random attacks that you think they can have. a la Storm 1. Storm 1 gave characters a lot of attacks they never used, and they were awesome. Double Lightning Quake is an attack that never ever happened. No one wanted it to happen, but it did, and it was awesome.
I know, and they kind of gave it to Super in the Storm games, but yeah. And also, they still have, in the Gekido Ninja Taisen Special, the quote-unquote sequel to Rev 3, is because it's last to be released to date, by the way. They added 4 characters, and they gave Sasuke, for some reason, like 6 different supers in that game.
Is he good?
I still wouldn't... Sasuke is quite broken in that game.
Was he?
Because of the number of supers he has, but then again, they have the old Flash in there, but, so yeah, take your pick.
Yeah.
Do you want to be broken because you have free teleports and a lot of supers, or do you want to be broken because you have free teleports and more free teleports and more free teleports? I mentioned teleports.
And I'm still sad they didn't put Pain or Conan in there.
I know.
How the fuck do you put Sage Naruto in a game, or Minato or whoever, and not include the guy he fought against?
I've honestly wanted Pain single-handedly more than any other character in the Naruto series to appear in Classic Ninja. He is the one guy I've always wanted to play as. But no.
Free rotations.
Yep, basically.
Free rotations.
Or no, just give me Tendo Pain. I'll be fine. That's honestly my favorite one.
Exactly. Well, same effect as rotation anyway. It's just push the enemy away.
Yeah, essentially. And you can give a ton of different melee attacks too. He's got a ton of variety. Anyway, so I think we'll learn on Class Ninja long enough. Let's see. Other good games you can get into to have a fair amount of depth is Budokai Tenkaichi.
3.
2 more. Yeah, there's 3. 2 is still kind of alright, but it pales in ultimate comparison to 3. Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is still,
it's the most complex game they've had next to Raging Blast 2.
It is the penultimate Dragon Ball Z game in my book. It is the penultimate anime game, period, in my book. Alright, fighting game wise. I've yet to fully explore the RPG.
This is true. And
absolutely.
In turn, and it's basically right up there with Raging Blast 2 as having some of the best, because the most you can do with combat, though, not even just items, just regular comboing in combat, up, down, left, right, center,
exactly. It requires some
around. You can get, if you know what you're doing, you can get some good infinites in there with the knockaways.
Oh yeah, I've seen some dudes on YouTube get like upwards of 200 hit combos just with regular melee attacks with like Ultimate Gohan. I still have no idea how they pull that off. Still learning that.
Amazing.
But yeah, the combo system in that game is so open ended, and each character, while everyone would say, "Well, 150 characters, you can possibly make them all diverse enough." Bullshit. Each one of them handles amazingly different.
Exactly, and more than that though, which is that there's so much to do in the game itself that you'll never truly be bored of it.
Yeah, it's like that's why I still contend it is the best anime fighting game out there right now.
Yeah, and in matter of content, definitely yes. I'd say it's only slightly behind Raging Blast 2 in gameplay, only because there is so much insane shit you can do with combos. You can have someone infinite, and with the right set items, a single combo string can get someone from full health to 0.
Yeah, although I'd still say with the tutorial mode, Raging Blast 2 would be a hell of a lot better. Tutorial mode that specifically told you about the combo strings they had.
Well, a tutorial mode that worked, basically.
Yeah. Let's see. Moving on from there, we have Raging Blast 2. Don't bother Raging Blast 1. You're wasting your time with that. Raging Blast 2 is vastly improved. Still not quite as spot on as it should be, but it's still pretty damn solid when you try to learn a character in that one. Other than that, of course, Tekken. Can't say enough. Can't praise that game enough.
As much as I hate what it's become, Street Fighter.
Street Fighter,
they have some, but
Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Really?
I've tried it before.
Why that reaction?
I've tried it before. It is neither easy nor fun on any sense.
I've tried it and I've gotten decently good at it. I should be on highest difficulty too.
Do you have Ultimate or the original?
I had Ultimate, but I sold it so I can get myself Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Simple, pretty funny, isn't it?
Irony. But,
oh yes.
But no, though, maybe it's just me, this is one of those games where I think, along with Street Fighter, you run into the Call of Duty crowd of people online. It was like, fuck you, fuck your mother, your mom's a bitch, fuck you, you're a bitch.
What are we talking about now? Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or Street Fighter 4?
Both of those types of games in general. When it goes to the online, when you have people when you're talking to people, you kind of, at least in my experience, you tend to encounter those same types of people, at least, that you encounter in Call of Duty. You a bitch, your mom's a bitch, you fucking suck, all that kind of shit.
Well, you have never played Tekken Revolution, then. There's a lot of foul amount of people on that one because it's free.
Oh no, I know. And
it's so fun to wreck them.
And I know you can find that in everywhere. Seriously, you have no idea the amount of shit I found in Storm Generations with those kind of people.
Yeah.
But
Jesus.
But seriously, those games are the worst at it because those are the ones where you have the people that are like tournament bragging bastards, where they have their own customly built arcade sticks, and it's like,
oh yeah, those are the. Well, there are a lot of nice people out there who are in the fighting game community with custom sticks who actually are pretty cool. There's the snobs who are doing that for attention.
That, and then there's the people who are like, fuck you, fuck your life, fuck your mother, you're gonna die. And those are the people that crowd to Street Fighter and some Tekken games and Ultimate Marvel and all of that shit, and it drives me away immediately. Like, even if I'm not playing online, that's basically all those games have devolved into. There's no story in them anywhere. They've devolved entirely just into online. The same way Soul Calibur has.
Well, that's because that's the crook it's going for. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 isn't story-based. It's fun-based. It's gameplay-based.
No, I get that.
Tekken Revolution, well, that's online-based.
No, I get that.
Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was never really meant to have story. Street Fighter, well, I think Street Fighter might have forgotten it has a story of sorts. Maybe?
It had one in the first place?
Yeah, well, it looked like it had one going for it with like the backstory between Ryu and Akuma. I almost called Ryu Goku for a second there. Oops. But yeah, it actually looked like it had a pretty decent story with like some of the movies, but no, it's just gone. I'm open to being wrong about this. Please, guys, if there's a really good story of Street Fighter, be my guest. Prove me wrong. I'd love to see a good story in Street Fighter.
If there is, that ship has long since sailed.
Likely, yeah.
And
although, if you want a decent crowd to hang around, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is a pretty good online experience from my experience. All the guys in there are pretty chill.
You know what's a really surprising blend? There's a blend of assholes and a lot of really kind people in the King of Fighters community, and that is a really hard game to learn. Like, really.
Yeah, that is like it is like a league of its own, dude.
That is above Street Fighter. It's above Tekken. It's above all that other stuff. It is in its own entire planet when it comes to something.
Also, good luck trying to get a platinum trophy on that game. That is insane.
Also, is one of those few things that can actually get away with yearly installments with no changes to gameplay whatsoever.
BlazBlue?
Actually, I don't think I've ever played it.
Also, Access games, I'd argue, yeah, they're alright for the amount of time you put into them, but they're so fucking deep and complex. I'm like,
definitely.
I mean, I know I said Tekken's really like deep with the stuff, but it's not deep as in execution level. It's deep as in, like, you pick your battles, you know what to do where, you sidestepping well, and you're good. And you punish well.
It's all a matter of memorization in BlazBlue, just basically knowing how to dodge an oncoming fucking icicle spear in your face.
Yeah, and it's also very execution heavy too. I'd say
it's the epitome
probably
of the
more
quarter
so.
Circle fighter.
It is. It's even more so than Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. It's hard as to believe. I always thought that was the king of inputs, but no, it's all about BlazBlue, man. I'm still stuck on Continuous Shift 2. As soon as I get my new PS3, I'm definitely jumping on that too. End my sorrow once and for all.
Continuous Shift Extend, or you're gonna get Continuous Shift Extend because that game actually has its own story and its own characters that are separate, or you're just gonna jump directly into Chrono Phantasma.
Whichever one has the story mode that's continues after the first game.
That would be Continuous Shift Extend, and
what's in 2?
Continuum Shift 2 is literally an arcade port for the PSP and 3DS.
Oh. Well, fuck that
So
then.
it's literally just arcade side stories.
Yeah. So, going back into fighting games as a whole, yeah, depending on the game you choose, like, you can't have fun in child games. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying you're not going to be rewarded as heavily as if you were to jump into something like Tekken or Clash of Ninja or Tenkaichi 3. If you jump into one of those, you're going to get so much value, and you're going to get so in depth with the fighting game character you like.
I'm going to be shamed blasphemy for this, but I took a couple times Virtua Fighter 5, the one you have, and god damn is it boring as hell.
Don't worry, dude, that's the only reason why it's pale in comparison to Tekken. It lacks the punch, it lacks the story. I honestly wish Virtua Fighter were better.
And it's boring in attacks, and there's no visual flair whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really lacking in oomph.
I don't know how that series continued into...
Yeah, even though I got Virtua Fighter 4 from that game store recently, so I'm going to try that later.
No.
It's a shame, too, because it looks like it has some really cool stuff to it, like Jin Kujo in Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown looks like a really cool character. Sarah Bryant, probably one of the hottest fighting game characters I've ever seen. Jackie Bryant, yeah, he's a bit of another one of those Taekwondo characters.
Which one is the white-haired soldier girl?
I don't remember, but she's she's a very unique grappling character. Yeah, kind of like Julia Chang, except she's a legal room.
God.
Again, honestly, again, these characters look like they have such cool potential in them, but there's nothing being done with the series.
Comparing her to Julia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm comparing her as in not hotness, but style wise.
Because I was about to say we might have had a problem there.
No, she doesn't hold a candle to Julia.
Julia or Michelle?
Both.
Yes.
Anyways.
Exactly.
Anyways.
I was certain we were about to get on to that kind of topic at 2 a.m. anyway.
Oh my god, it is.
Yeah, right? We've been doing this for 2.5 hours now. Not surprised. I think the Pokemon thing would take up half of it.
Probably. But we kind of lost our focus and just talking about what are good and bad fighting games. But basically, yeah.
Alright, so now so my final point is with fighting games, what reward is there to learning a fighting game character besides just getting good against fighting other people, against fighting CPU, against getting rewards? Why would you get good with a fighting game character? It's because I kind of think it harkens back to what I was saying with me raising against Solomons and Soul Silver. You get really attached to these characters. Yeah, you have a connection to them. You begin to like them, regardless of if they're a good character or not. You start to some of their personalities reflect in the moves they use. Going back to Street Fighter, Ryu is a very focused, down-to-earth character. Ken is a very flashy and over-the-top character. It reflects in their personalities and in their gameplay. So, you honestly, a lot of people when they first get into fighting games gravitate towards characters that they like. With me, I usually stick to the somewhere between fast and hard-hitting characters like Mitsurugi and Soul Calibur, Kazuya and Tekken, all those kind of characters. It shows on your personality, and it honestly is kind of a motivational attempt to get good with them.
I think you're really gonna like Project Cross Zone.
Probably. Anyone could pick up Virgil in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as a really broken shit character, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Budokai Tenkaichi 3. You can pick up Orochimaru in Clash of Ninja 2. Any of those really broken characters. Danzo, yeah. Or Madara.
No, fuck Madara. Danzo.
Yeah. But you like him because he's fun. There is fun broken and there's just being broken.
That's true.
For the wrong reasons. Yeah. Anyone can pick up a really fun character or a really broken character and just win. But there's no reward in that. People usually don't do that unless you're picking capoeira characters. Fuck those guys. If you pick up a character that you like and you get really good with them, I honestly think that's where the ultimate reward with learning a fighting game is. You pick the time, you drop it in, and you get good with these guys, and you're just blasting everyone online with a character you love, no less. So it feels like you yourself are beating the fuck out of these guys online who are using capoeira characters or Madaras. Yeah. That's honestly why I think that's good. Yeah.
Generally, yeah. When you find something you can truly enjoy, it's more than worth it, even if there is no literal reward out of it in the game. When you lack enjoyment in a character, or if a game lacks content itself, even for a game that does have it, it immediately goes back into that category of tedium and monotony that you don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And I know this is probably going to be also going to annoy people, but I think for me at least, the ultimate in monotony that I've at least dealt with lately outside of target grinding, the bonus levels in Sonic Generations. I can only play 3 versions of the same level so many times before I immediately put the game down.
Well, it depends on the. Some of them are very bullshit, like the rhythm game with that one alligator dude. Some of them are really bad, yeah.
And then some of the ones.
Others are pretty damn fun.
Some of the minor levels are fun, yeah, but some of the other ones were
the one hit wonder level where you have 1 HP and you have to run through it and not get hit once. I love that level. It's hard, but I love it.
Indeed, and then there's the ones where you have to jump around and bounce on Amy's hammer and shit like that.
Yeah, that's not so badly structured though.
It's not that it's badly structured; it's just that there are so many of those levels that are particularly annoying. It's not that they're bad; it's just that there are so many of them.
And then luckily, it rewards you every time you beat one, like with either a piece of concept art or music. So it's just literally spitfiring a bunch of rewards at you.
Maybe I'm the odd one out here, but I wish that once you save those characters, you actually would have unlocked them to be playable.
Yeah, but it's Sonic Generations. It's more of a celebration of Sonic's history himself.
Give us Tails. Give us Knuckles. Look, I would have played the game 1,000 times if they had given me Knuckles.
Yeah, but as long as you can detect more than one emerald at the same time. Fucking Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh yes, the tedium that has become Sonic games as a whole lately. You're playing.
Really?
Some of them at least. You're playing them for the sake of playing them, hoping against hope that they've gotten better, or at least they've gotten back up to their standard of excellence. And if ever they,
the only bad one lately is Sonic in the Lost World. That's about
Sonic Lost World, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic 6.
Well, Sonic Unleashed is a long time ago, man. That's vastly overshadowed by the ones that came out lately. Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations are 2 masterpieces that come out in the recent years that honestly completely shit all over Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, they are, but they're the only ones people actually liked since Sonic Adventure 2. Everything between Sonic Lost World and Sonic Adventure 2 outside of those 2 games have generally had a pretty bad rap as far as the community goes. And
Sonic Heroes is kind of just lumped in with Sonic 06 as the bad era of Sonic games. Shout out Hedgehog, no one likes that game for a good reason. Sonic 06, yeah, everyone loves that game.
What I really...
No, I shouldn't even joke about that.
I really want a true Sonic racing game, one that isn't bad and one that doesn't have a stupid gimmick of you controlling 3 people at once. I want an honest-to-God Sonic racing game, and how did I forget about this? Sonic, whatchamacallit, for Kinect.
Sonic... This is a Sonic for Kinect
Yes,
game?
there was.
Oh, whoa, yeah, you're talking about Sonic Free Riders, right? Yeah, I know about that game.
The worst thing ever. I've played that game. It is the worst thing ever. Worse than 06. If you're not...
Worse than Sonic R?
Sonic R.
Sonic R.
What's that?
It's only the best Sonic game ever made.
I'll take your word on that. But no, it's the worst thing.
I'm clearly fucking with you.
I know exactly why. But no, this is like the worst thing ever because it wouldn't be so bad if motion control worked or if at least you had to run or something to gain speed or momentum in a racing game. But no, you're standing still and you're leaning back and forth. Your character's on autopilot, you're just tilting them. And every time you do
Dragon Ball Z for Kinect.
And every time you try anything, you're not going forward, you're not going sideways, you're going into a wall.
Dragon Ball Z for Kinect.
And it's so broken sometimes, and sometimes it's so broken you clip through and then through a wall and end up ahead of everyone in first place.
Every game on a Kinect ever made is bad.
I know, but this is an exception above the rest.
Yeah.
Worse than DBZ Kinect.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Like, I know it's not saying much for Kinect, but trust me, this isn't a league of its own.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so I'm out of topics to talk about for the podcast. How about you?
trying to think of any, but
Do you have these like written out beforehand? Because you sound like you had these pretty well organized.
I think about these general topics, and then the games come to me as I'm talking.
Okay, I meant like the categories as a whole.
Oh, the categories, yeah, stuff like true endings, stories, grinding, stuff like that. That comes naturally to me.
Yeah,
beforehand.
I was gonna mention earlier the bullshit of trying to unlock Sasuke with Sharingan in Class Ninja 2, but I think I'll let the playthrough explain that for itself.
Go for it. Alright. And you know what? As an added benefit, if you stuck with us this far, you have gained the trophy for doing something tedious enough to be awarded with Tedium.
Or if you're smart, skip to the end.
Oh god, it's been a long time. This is gonna be one of our longer ones, actually.
Yeah, it is. Not as bad as the anime 2013 one, but hey, it's still pretty long.
Oh,
I actually didn't mind this one so much. I actually had a lot of things to talk about this time around.
and you know what? Actually, you're right though, because as you said before we started, this is going to be one of the ones that's truly intelligent conversation, because it does talk about game design as a whole. Is something worth doing, and was it programmed properly enough to make that something fun enough to do?
And then Brandon started talking about Pokemons.
Hey, that game has a whole host of problems.
Yes, it did.
Might go off on a solo one on that one.
Maybe we'll just have an entire Pokemon podcast as a whole about shit we like and shit we don't like.
This is doable.
Well, then again, Let's Plays will also speak for himself too. I don't know what we should start with though. Let's do a Battle Revolution first. Why not?
I was actually going to say why not start with fan games.
What, did Black and Blue? It's not. I'm game.
Oh, well, wouldn't that only take like 15 minutes?
Maybe. I never played before.
Alright, that's an option, but I have another idea in mind that I want to tackle, mostly because of my recently gained immense knowledge on the matter.
I wonder if I can eat my Pikachu with a Salamence. That'd be nice. That'd be pretty cool.
But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. That's all we have for today. Tedium, thus, has been discussed.
Yay!
Whether it's good or bad, that's up to you to decide. And we leave you with the question, is it worth doing, or is it something that should be avoided at all costs? Is it situational?
Do or not to do?
Is it situational, or is it all-encompassing? And with that thought, we leave you for today. Thank you for joining us.
Night!